I would like to call the Flint Board of Education regular board meeting to order. The time is 6:35 p.m. Board members, as I call your name, please reply present for the record. Vice President Perry is absent. Secretary Green. Treasurer McIntyre.
Present.
Assistant Secretary McNeil. Board Trustee Walker.
Present.
Board Trustee Wright is absent. And myself, I'm present. 5 present, 2 absent. Before we proceed with tonight's meeting, I am seeking a motion and a second to amend the meeting agenda to enable the board to act on the following authorization to, you can't hear me? All right. Before we proceed with tonight's meeting, I am seeking a motion and a second to amend the meeting agenda to enable the board to act on the following authorization 25.8, authorization to purchase approved items from amended school improvement grant, the SIG funds for the fiscal year of 2021.
So moved.
It has been properly moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing no further discussion, the motion to amend the meeting agenda to act upon resolution 25.8 will be conducted by a roll call vote. And as I call your name, please say yes to approve or no to not approve. Ms. Green?
Yes.
Ms. McIntyre?
No.
Ms. McNeil?
Yes.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
And it's a yes for me, but the motion fails because we need a 2/3 vote for a waiver.
To amend the agenda, it requires a 2/3 approval to walk in a waiver. And I couldn't get a quorum for the meeting prior. 2/3 is 5.
Oh, okay. Why you couldn't get a form?
I couldn't,
That email you sent out?
yeah.
Oh,
Okay, well, motion failed for lack of support.
Unless you can, the failing party, which would be Treasurer McIntyre, would have to be in agreement to open back up discussion. Sorry.
are you in agreement?
I'm not voting yes for the SIG fund. I haven't, it's
Okay.
been a consistent thing I've done, and I'm just not gonna go on record as having rubber stamped what the previous board's done with the SIG grants.
Well, I do want to say that they already have the money for the grant.
It's already spent.
They're gonna have it.
We asked, there was a discussion, discussion's over, we had the vote, so.
Okay, well, I just want you to be clear because
I am very clear,
so you know they have the money already.
that's correct.
Okay, so you turning down the services then? Okay, thank you. I'm just
Nope,
making
nope,
sure because I
that's
don't
not what
want
I'm
you to.
doing. I'm just not voting to waive the bylaws of the Board of Education.
Okay, thank
To
you.
have a special meeting. Well, I mean, so you're allowed to say whatever you want
No,
on the side of the meeting and then.
No, I was
can't
just making sure you were
Okay,
clear
Thank you.
on the fact that they had the money already and we just weren't gonna receive the services.
There's other things that I'm clear on too, yeah.
Okay, well, wonderful. Well, you feel free. I asked for discussion, that included you.
Right, and I mean, does everyone want to have a discussion?
I think so. I think we should. Because for me, and I'm gonna tell you why I say that. I was enlightened by Miss Murphy about some things that I wasn't so clear. And I'm not saying that's what your situation is, but I'm saying for me, she cleared up some things and that's why my vote changed. And like I said, I'm not sure. And with more discussion, we can figure out and make sure we all have a clear understanding before we just say no to money that this was passed last year. And I know you said rubber stamp it, which is just a word people use. But anyway, it's 3 things that changed in the grant. And I wasn't quite aware what those things were. And like I said, I'm not sure if that's what your situation is, but conversation would reveal that. That's all I'm saying. So I'm open for conversation.
Bring that up is to make sure,
'Cause I
for a
was
point
right.
of information, really is what it was.
Yeah,
I
'cause
wasn't
I
trying to
wasn't clear.
pick a fight with nobody.
Right.
Just making sure we are clear on the facts. That's it.
because I wasn't clear either.
Okay, well, okay, so we moving on. Is there any other discussion? Okay. Before we begin tonight's meeting, please join in saying the Pledge of Allegiance. Please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we will do our district's mission standards of practice. Now I will call upon Secretary Green to read the district's mission statement and the first statement in the standards of practice. Thank you. Fellow board members.
It is the mission of the Flint Community School District to develop a community of learners who are prepared to live, work, and contribute to an ever-changing society. In order to provide outstanding leadership and better service the Flint Community Schools, we, the members of the Flint Board of Education, commit to the following standards of practice. We will be consistent in our dealings with each other, as well as students, staff, and community. Laura?
I don't have the script.
You do. Right there, you got it? Okay.
We will model trustworthiness and honesty in our relationship with each other, with our superintendent, and with our constituents.
We will focus on the common goal of providing the best education possible for students in the Flint Community Schools.
We are respected that there's views that each of us bring to the organization, as well as the view of others that we interact with as we carry out the business of Board of Education.
We will be open and authentic with each other, our staff, and community.
As we work to make decisions, we will focus on issues, not personalities.
Thank you. Our decisions will be student-centered and based on objective facts.
We will practice good listening skills to better understand our fellow Board of Education members and constituents.
Thank you, board members. Before proceeding with our meeting, has Dr. Sullivan arrived? Does anybody have eyes on Dr. Sullivan? Okay,
So Dr. Sullivan is experiencing a fire right now, and she's on her way. She should be here momentarily, within 5 to 10 minutes.
okay. Next up, we will receive our representatives from Johnson Control Incorporated with an update on the air conditioning in our schools. Please step forward, gentlemen, and introduce yourselves to the board members.
My name is Dan Mack. I'm with Johnson Controls. So President McIntosh, members of the board, Superintendent Stewart. I'll go through, I see some new faces here, so I would like to go through a little bit of background before we start talking about the progress of what we've done. I'll just point, Monica, is that okay? Okay. The side, there you go. Okay, one more time. Okay, little harder to see back here, but for those of you that are new, back in 2019, we were selected to do what's called a performance contract to be able to make some needed upgrades to the buildings. And what that performance contract meant was that the energy and operational savings from making these improvements were going to be the capital used to actually fund the improvements. And so there were also guarantees put on this in terms of the savings, but also in terms of the cost. So with this list of improvements and the nature of kind of the state of your equipment, we were able to do all these improvements without asking for any change order. So if we found something on site that we didn't anticipate, we had to eat that cost. And so that was attractive enough for the board to say, you know what, this makes a lot of sense. So we developed a project. It was about a $19 million project to basically renovate your heating, ventilation, air conditioning, controls, lighting, water conservation. There were a lot of improvements that you can see on the board here. And it was put into 2 phases. The first phase was the fully self-funded part, but when this was constructed by your previous superintendent, he wanted to have air conditioning in these buildings too. That would have required funding from the state. So that was put on pause until that funding was acquired. And so we started on these other improvements. And I'm going to give you a little bit more background here. It'll make more sense. So we started on these improvements to the air handlers, refurbishing the air handlers, putting boilers in, putting in building automation controls, and I'll take you through that. But we paused on things like lighting, water conservation, building envelope, just in case that funding wasn't approved, that we had some money to use to try to get some air conditioning put in some of these buildings that never had air conditioning. So that funding was not secured. And so what we did, I believe it was about a year ago on Zoom, we decided that, we were going to cut these other items out of our scope of work. It would have required a change order to reduce the amount of the contract, which we did, and try to reconfigure the air conditioning to actually fit within the funding that we had, but still provide air conditioning, which we were able to do. And I'll give you an update on where we're at with this project. So any questions on this? This is kind of a busy slide, but there's a lot of background with this project and decisions that were made in, Northwestern and all that kind of stuff. So any questions? Okay, go ahead, Monica. I'm going to burn through these pretty quickly. This is really kind of a photo tour of before and after, and through this, I'll tell you what's been done. So this is some of the existing air controls. You've had different generations of controls. A lot of it's been abandoned. We didn't know what was working, what wasn't working. And so I'll show you what we did. Go ahead, Monica. A little higher, I think. Oh, there you go. Okay, so this is a snapshot of what you now have in terms of building automation controls. And so the controls weren't working before. Like I said, there was some areas, there were 3 generations of controls dating back to the 60s that were still in place and abandoned. So we took all of that stuff out. We put in the new controls. And so now you have, go to the next one, if you wouldn't mind, Monica. And so now you have more control over your buildings. That graph is something that was in our proposal to the district, where we put loggers in, and that 85-degree top line, that's not in the summertime, that's in the wintertime. And so now you're hanging around 70 degrees in the wintertime, and you used to have stacks and stacks and stacks of complaints. Almost every school was in this condition, and now you've got boilers and controls and air handlers that are actually monitoring and maintaining the environment for the students so that they have an environment that they can learn in. Go ahead, Monica. And this is just another, so you didn't have this, but these are the graphics that your building operators can use to see what's going on in the buildings, a view that they never had before. You can troubleshoot your buildings remotely, which is certainly something that you didn't have before. So it allows the staff that you do have to be able to do more and be more effective. Go ahead, Monica. So these are some of the air handling units that we found. This is actually pretty typical of the buildings. They were in very poor shape. Things were missing. You can see some of the motors are missing. The coils were in disrepair and a blanket of dust on them. Go ahead, Monica. Oh, it must go backwards if you go up that high. There you go. Okay, so I'm going to take you through each one of the buildings. I'm going to go kind of quickly because it's all going to seem redundant after a while. But these are the units that serve the cafeteria at Northwestern. We didn't do a lot at Northwestern, but the units that serve the cafeteria over on the left-hand side are, what we found, and we left with what you see on the right-hand side. We took each of the air handlers in the district and we took them completely apart. We tested the coils to make sure that they were operational. If they weren't, then we repaired them or replaced them. We patched and painted the housings. We sandblasted the blower coils, the thing inside that actually moved the air, and had those repainted, put in new high efficiency motors, belts, shivs, and repiping and insulation where needed, and control. So you can kind of see the pretty dramatic difference without actually having to spend the money to replace the air handler. So you have like new air handlers, and some of these things, you know, are 60, 70 years old. Go ahead, Monica. And this is just kind of going through, so Doyle Rider, same thing. Left-hand side is what we found. Right-hand side is how we left it. So pretty dramatic difference in the shape of the air handling unit that's moving the air for these kids and heating it, cooling it. Go ahead, Monica. And you'll see again some redundancy. There's Freeman. Go ahead. Touchy board, I know. Brownell. These are some of the units at Eisenhower. Dramatic difference there from to the right to the left. Nethercut, although at Nethercut, am I saying it right? I always mess that up. Okay, so at Nethercut, we actually put air conditioning in Nethercut in that first phase, which never had air conditioning before. So that was done actually last year. So they would have had this summer with air conditioning. Pierce, again, some of the dramatic difference between before and after. And this was all done again through a project that you didn't have to go out to the public necessarily and ask for money just for this project. This was savings are paying for this project. So this one's interesting. So Potter, some of these units are so old, they actually did not have filters in them. So we built filter racks for units that did not have filters in them, which we were a little bit surprised when we found that, but now all of your air handlers have filter racks with filters in them. Go ahead. Doyle Rider. So now we get into the boilers, and the boiler at the upper left is the old boiler. The new boiler is a high efficiency boiler. We've used this brand of boiler for decades. They work fantastic, long life, shorter, smaller footprint. And then those boxes you see on the right are actually variable frequency drives for the pumps. So now instead of the pumps going full blast throughout the wintertime, now we can modulate those based on the needs of the classrooms. And so you're saving energy when we can dial those down. So there was a lot of focus on energy efficiency as well as redundancy and reliability. Go ahead, Monica. Some of the boilers at Freeman. Go ahead. And we wish we would have been able to renovate the entire mechanical room, but with the funding we had to focus on what was important, and that was boilers, controls, pumps. Obviously, you know, it would have been nice to replace all the piping. In each one of these, there was sufficient funding to replace 2 of the 3 boilers, so one of the old boilers remains, and so that would be a project for future consideration. But you do have sufficient capacity with the new boilers to continue to provide reliable heat to each of these buildings. It's a little harder to see on Potter there, but kind of the same thing. Replace the old boilers with high efficiency boilers and put variable frequency drives on, and many of the pumps were replaced as well, or at least the motors were. Go ahead. Okay, so now getting into the air conditioning. Some of your buildings had air conditioning. Admin had a chiller that was very old, unreliable. Doyle Rider had an air conditioner that was very old, a little bit more reliable, but still well past its useful life. So do you remember when we talked about trying to fit air conditioning into each one of these buildings with the limited funding that we had? We decided as a team between Johnson Controls and the administration to use some of the chillers that were fairly new at Northwestern, since they were not in use. There was money sunk into those that you weren't getting the benefit from. So we took 2 of those units off out of I think the 3 that were up there. One we put, and we had to make sure that the sizing was proper and all that. So we put one at Doyle Ryder and one at Admin. And so those 2 are complete, and you have reliable air conditioning at those buildings. The rest of the buildings, go ahead, Monica. The rest of the buildings are a little more complicated than that because you never had air conditioning at these buildings. And so the classrooms, you can see the units in the classrooms, and I'm just about done, I promise. So those cassettes, we call them, that's like 1/2 of the air conditioning with the fans and the controls and the evaporators. Those are all complete at Brownell, Doyle Ryder. I don't know why I have Doyle Ryder actually, and they're Eisenhower, Freeman, Pierce, Potter, and Holmes. And so the inside sets are complete at those buildings. You can go to the next one, Monica. So we have the pads poured on the outside for those buildings. We have the outside units at Northwestern ready to go, but we need to have fencing around those pads to be able to put those outdoor units in there so that they're secure. And so it's actually Flint School's responsibility to get those fences around there. But as you can imagine with the problem, and we've seen this everywhere, the problems with material and with a labor shortage, it's been a little more difficult to get multiple quotes for those pads, which the district's working on. So, but we can still continue to do piping and some electrical, but that's kind of right now the critical path is to get those fences around there. So unfortunately, we will not have air conditioning completed this year. We'll have it done by December, but it obviously won't help you. And we've been talking with Anita about something that we can do, Miss Stewart, sorry, something that we can do to get you through the summer. The schedule that we had originally when we did this change order was December 31st, and we're still going to be able to get there. But again, it doesn't help you this summer. So we're going to try to see what we can do to take some pressure off for this summer. Go ahead. Any questions on any of this? Yes, ma'am.
Sorry, I don't know if now is the perfect time or not, but I feel like it is as it relates to cooling. Again, I understand the timeline that you projected, but today I had a chance to spend some time at Brownell and Holmes, and I'll just speak quite frankly, again, and it's something that we already know, but it doesn't make it okay in terms of how unbearable it is within the schools, given, again, airflow, especially everything that we're dealing with via the COVID times. I talked to a number of teachers and also parents who shared some serious concerns about those conditions, and also students who complained about the conditions. The other thing, though, outside of that I wanted to bring up is the piece as it relates to the wiring, right? So as we're doing this work, what I found while I was there was that they had portable units that was in the classroom. However, when they turned it on, it blew circuits. And that was an issue, right? Because I feel like teachers had to almost prioritize whether or not they were going to turn on the air, blow their smart board, or use a fan. And even when they use the fan, again, we have masks on, it's hard to hear. So again, I understand that you all are trying to do the best, but I hope that that's something that's being taken into consideration, because it's just unbearable. And again, I was only there for maybe a little bit over 2 hours, but it's no way that you can learn in that environment.
I completely agree. And unfortunately, these buildings never had air conditioning. And one of the concerns that we had when we discussed putting air conditioning was the electrical service. Is this on? Okay. So you're right. The electrical service at these buildings really should be addressed. Now we're taking separate runs for our equipment, so it shouldn't be an issue, but the electrical service is still an issue. And we get to, not this next slide, but the one after this, I'll address that. And this is just real quickly, the equipment that's yet to be funded at these buildings, providing these are buildings that have a future here. The lighting upgrades, water conservation, building envelope, those are kind of the main ones out of the scope that we originally identified that still need to be done. Monica, if you could go one more, and I promise this is the last slide. Not a lot to talk about here, except that as we went through your buildings, we know your buildings very well by now. We've been there for a couple of years now. There are a lot of needs, including the electrical service, obviously roofs, parking lots, piping at some of these buildings really should be addressed. Fire, security, those systems, there's a lot of systems that are as old as the equipment that we touched are. And so, we would suggest that a facility assessment be done to really identify, regardless of funding, what needs to be done in these buildings, and then determine exactly how you're going to attack those and prioritize those. And we can help you with that if it's something the district would like to do. Yes, ma'am.
My concerns goes back to Burnell and homes, especially Burnell, with the electrical problem. What would you do, or think we should do for now? Because keeping in mind, going back, flipping that box when the power goes out, my concern is that we're putting the school at risk, teachers at risk, and kids. So what would you suggest at this point, because this has been going on for years, that an immediate quick fix or something like that to ensure that this won't happen, or to accommodate that overheat in the classroom, because kids still have to come to school. So what your recommendation would be for right now until we can get to where we're trying to go?
So that's a tough question that I probably can't answer, not being the technical side of our group, but I would definitely say that whatever you do, we're going to have to look at those circuits and make sure that they can handle it, because what you don't want to do is solve one problem and create another, right? So you may end up having to just go with fans. Fans don't take a lot of energy. They're not the best solution, but they may be the interim solution until you can really, the air conditioning that we're putting in is going to be fine from an electrical standpoint, but that's still an issue that needs to be addressed in those buildings. I don't know if that helps. I hope it does. It's not a silver bullet. There are no silver bullets with this, unfortunately.
I see, according to the pictures, you guys did a lot of work. It looks nicer. But what exactly does that allow us to do? Because in my mind, a lot of work was done, but really, I don't know what was accomplished with all that work.
Okay, so that's a fair question. So the outside is kind of an indicator of what was happening on the inside. So there's really kind of three different pieces to the learning environment in terms of air conditioning, heating, ventilation. So you've got the main equipment, the boilers and chillers. They have to be reliable. You have air handling units that take those services, the heating, the cooling, and they have to turn those into either heated or cooled air that makes it to the space, that makes it comfortable for the kids. And then the third one is the control system. And not one of those pieces in those buildings was functioning properly. So we had to replace the controls so that you could manage the heating and cooling, both the boilers and the air handlers. If the air handlers aren't moving air, it doesn't matter if you're producing heat at the boiler or you're controlling it properly. You're not going to get that heat to the space. So that was an issue. The boilers were past their useful life. A lot of them went down regularly, and you'd have really cold classrooms in one part of the buildings and really hot classrooms in the other part of the building. So as you can imagine, it's difficult for kids to learn in that environment. I couldn't do it. It's hot in here and I can't really speak the way I normally would. So we had to address all of those pieces, and they're working now, and they're working very well. So that's what was changed. It's not just the look on the outside, that's just cosmetics, but really the work was on the inside and replacing those pieces of equipment and the controls that control them.
So the boilers were replaced and now we can manage the temperature? Is that what I understand
Yeah,
correctly?
manage the temperature and the airflow.
And the airflow? So,
Right. And the cleanliness of the air by putting
that's
those
important.
filter racks in
okay,
and cleaning the coils. And we replaced actually a lot of coils because they were leaking. So you'd have leaking water in a coil and that would make its way as humidity into the space.
Mm.
So there were a lot of issues that we
Yeah.
replaced. And we really went through with a defined tooth comb and made sure that we didn't leave anything half done,
okay.
if that makes sense.
Okay, so I got a couple more questions.
Yeah.
So if I'm not mistaken, you said the air conditioning has to be state funded, is that what you said?
So that was the original plan through the previous administrator.
Okay.
And so that did not happen. And so we regrouped and this body, Anita, our team, we determined that, you know, the lighting was important. It provided a lot of energy savings, but you have lighting. You don't have cooling. Water conservation, your fixtures work, they're just not very efficient. Was that high of importance? Not so much compared to air conditioning. Building envelope, is the building a little leaky? Yeah. Would it be nice to tighten it up? Yeah. But air conditioning was more important. So we stripped out some of the things that we were going to do. And then we modified the air conditioning solutions to make them less expensive by putting the units on the ground instead of on the roof. Using perfectly good units at Northwestern instead of buying new units. And so we devised a plan to still be able to accomplish air conditioning and not burden the school district. And so that's what we did. I don't know, Anita, if you have anything to add to that, but so there was a lot of work to get to that point. And now we're to the point where most of it is, we finally got the equipment. That took a lot of work because you're wrestling equipment from others that want the equipment, and the suppliers are supplying far less than they had, 2 years ago. So I'm pretty happy with where we're at, actually. I really wish we could have gotten air conditioning this summer. We had planned to get it done in December because we knew that these were going to be issues. But I could have seen us in a scenario where it would have been, not that it would have mattered to the district now, but January, February, March, because of the equipment shortages and labor shortages. But we're going to be in really good position to be done. December, January, we'll have to come back when the cooling season starts to make sure we load the compressors up and make sure that everything's working properly, but we'll all be ready well in advance of the spring.
Okay, so we are behind because of shortage on what you said, workforce and hires?
We anticipated this schedule, so technically we're not behind our schedule. But we would have liked, we were pushing to get done sooner than that schedule. But with equipment shortages, it just wasn't plausible.
So we've been out of the buildings for a while, as far as the students and staff, we're back in now, unfortunately. But what was being done while there was no one in the buildings? Was anything being done at all?
So if you look at the picture that I had, there were a bunch of what I called the cassette units, those air conditioning units that you see in the classrooms. There's a large number. There's one of those in every single classroom, every office. So we were putting those in.
What do those do?
So those house without trying to get too complicated, the evaporator unit. So there's 2 coils in air conditioner, one on the inside, one on the outside. So it has a coil on the inside. It has the fan.
Okay.
It takes the condensate. So when you cool the air down, you get condensate. And so that has to be piped somewhere. The electrical has to be run to it. The controls have to be run to it.
Okay.
We poured all the pads. So we scrambled, and plus we had to get the equipment. That was the hard part.
Okay.
Was getting
Yeah.
it all in, and we're staging it at Northwestern.
Okay.
So that's what was being done.
Okay. So those are things that need to be done before the air conditioning goes in.
Yeah, I mean, you have to have everything. If you're missing, one small component, you don't have air conditioning.
So since we prioritize, we shouldn't have problem funding the air for the buildings. We should be okay with that?
Yeah, we are okay.
Okay.
And you won't have any, no matter what we find as an issue, you
Mhm.
won't have any change orders.
Okay.
So once you settle on a contract, it's done, it's sealed. You don't
Okay.
come back. That's kind of our approach with performance contracting is you don't get a change order unless it's, if you don't have the funding and you had to come back. And so you carve $4 million out of our contract and say, okay, we don't have this money. So we scrambled to try to still get the air conditioning done within the scope of the contract.
Okay, I just want to say, I've been getting a lot of emails and stuff about how hot it is. And we all agreed to the balance calendar. I know that, but part of the reason why I did is because I thought we would have it here. We don't. I think we need to rethink this balance calendar thing. This is just something I've been thinking about, so I just wanted to bring that up. Rethink this balance calendar thing that we're doing. Because ventilation is a concern for me. Under the circumstances, well, anytime, even before the pandemic, ventilation is important. So I just think, to my board members and the superintendent, that the balance calendar thing's been on my mind heavy. So I just wanted to mention that.
What do you suggest we should do?
Not do balance calendar.
Oh, just and figure out something.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, that's my thoughts.
Now, I will tell you that the air conditioning for next summer will be complete.
Maybe pause it till next summer till we can adequately supply an environment that's conducive to learning. That's my hopes. Okay, thank you.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm listening to you talk about Northwestern and you took air conditioners from Northwestern. You gave one to the administration building. So it is my understanding that it's just for the food service that they have air.
Those did not serve food services.
So what's in Northwestern now? Do you have any air conditioning in Northwestern? Or
I don't believe food services has air conditioning.
In that part of the building? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, they don't have air conditioning in any of the buildings.
Right, except Nethercoot, right? I thought you said Nethercoot had.
Well, in North, I think the young lady was talking about Northwestern, so I'm just talking about
Oh,
Northwestern.
I thought you said any of the buildings. Okay.
Yeah, so it was Northwestern, and it was never, I don't think, anticipated that they would have air
maybe,
conditioning,
okay.
because you would have to run the entire building to give them air conditioning,
Um,
and that was never in the plan.
Well, I don't know how we're gonna have central kitchen over there. There's so many other events, but we're not
Yes.
gonna have air over. Now, them people cooking over there, even when the district closed, when the kids is at home due to COVID, they in Northwestern cooking and preparing meals for our students. So I don't see how that's helpful, but okay. And I know that's not your fault, but I'm just saying, we might need to reconsider that, because
Yes.
If
I
you're
mean-
gonna have air conditioning in the kitchen, I would suggest a separate unit for the kitchen. That would be the most economical to operate, to install, because it's gonna take, even without taking those units off, it would have taken, I don't remember the number, but it was in the millions to get the heating, air conditioning actually functional in the building because it was in such bad shape. So the chillers were fine, but there are so many other systems that require cooling in those, but the coils were bad. The piping is rotted. The controls were bad. The pumps were bad. The only thing good in the air conditioning system were the chillers. The rest of it was basically shot, if I can use that term.
when you say in the millions, you're talking about 3 million,
Northwestern.
6 million?
Oh, I don't remember. We stopped talking about that a while ago. It was, I think we lumped air conditioning and heating in the same number, and it was in the millions. I don't remember which it was. I can get back to you with that if you'd like.
Okay, because I thought we voted as a board to finish renovating Northwestern and work our way around to Brunel and Holmes. Am I the only one who remember that?
Well, I can't hear you mumbling under that.
Okay, I said, I thought we had agreed to finish Northwestern because we started with the new cafeterias and,
I remember a conversation on
but we
that,
didn't vote on it.
but it's
Okay.
just something we need to look at.
Well, I think I move that we get some air over there for Central Kitchen at Northwestern, because we've moved outdoors, we've renovated the kitchen, we've changed the cafeteria. We've done all this to Northwestern. We got a new roof over there on the gym. And now we're not gonna put
And I-
air, but we got our central I mean, I think we should do that. Probably, yes, I moved, and did anybody second it? 'Cause I'm
Second. Oh,
Okay. Okay, it's been moved and properly seconded that we get some air for Central Kitchen over at Northwestern. And I think, are there any other discussions? Okay, who was first? Laura?
This is why we need a strategic plan, why we need institutional memory, and why we need those documents that I've been asking for that relate to the financials. I mean, it's all connected. So as far as I know, and I don't have the documents because I've asked for them and I've asked for them and I still don't have them. There's a history where we sold our central kitchen and somehow it ended up in Northwestern. And I want to know why and how. I want the answer to that. And after it got put over there, I believe the roof was part of the, what would you say, the enticement. There was like, and I don't want to speak out of school, so to speak. Like I would like the details to this so I can be more specific, so I don't say anything out of line. But I don't like what happened and how we got the central kitchen over at Northwestern. I think it was a shady deal, and I want the details so that we know why. As far as I know, the Northwestern as a building can't be used as an educational facility. And again, I would like the details on this. I believe the last I heard, it was like $4 million to remediate in terms of asbestos and lead, and it was cost prohibitive, which is why we're not using it, why we're only using it for the central kitchen. If I'm wrong, show me the documentation, show me what's going on with that. That's what I think was happening. I think we lost Sarvis Center and we lost our central kitchen, and somehow it ended up in Northwestern. And I want to know all the details of those transactions. I believe it was around 2015, between 2015 and now. And so that's what I would like to see. I want to see the bigger picture. So before we go putting a air conditioner into the kitchen for Northwestern, I want to know why we're there, why we're not someplace else. And I want those details and I want the financials that are associated with them.
We're there because that's what the board voted to put Central Kitchen over there, just like this. And Starver Center was already gone. We didn't have a Central Kitchen, so we had to get somewhere so we can feed our kids. So that's how.
That's not what I was asking. I would like the details of those transactions, those decisions that were made by the board, like and why did the board make that decision? And why did we end up in a building that can't be used? Why are we paying almost $200,000 a year, I believe, to have a food system in a building that can't be used for educational purposes? And if I mean, I just want the historical, the institutional records that go back and show the progression.
Well,
of
we don't
this.
have those. I don't have the institutional records.
Well, we should. I mean, why don't we have those things?
Because we have a lot of stuff that we have to do, and we're just not tracking institutional records. Now, I'm not saying they can't be got, but I see you peeking over here talking about why did the board, we can't explain to you why board members voted a certain way. I mean, we would have to get in touch with those board members and ask them that. I don't know.
So, okay, so this is exactly my point. This is why we're in the situation that we're in, because we're not being careful about when we have to know our history in order to move forward into the future. And so I know that you don't want to see that, but that's what I want to see. And that's what I'm saying.
I don't have a problem with you seeing that.
Well, I'm just making that request that we
My
look
point
at
is-
that transition and how we got the central kitchen into Sarvis into Northwestern, because I think that that information is crucial. And that if you see who made those decisions, it wasn't just the board, there were other interests involved in getting that transition. And I would like to revisit that and see why we're over there and why we're in the situation that we're in. Because if we don't look at why we're in the situation that we're in, then it's just going to get worse. We're going to keep putting a Band-Aid on top of a bullet wound.
Dr. Joyce.
Are you done?
Yeah.
I have a question for you. There's some construction workers, property that's stored over at Southwestern High School. Is that part of your equipment or construction property?
No, our staging area is at Northwestern. Yeah, Southwestern was not in our scope in any way, shape, or form.
Back to you, I'm not done.
Okay, Secretary Green, did you have any questions?
No, I just don't want my feelings about the, balance calendar to get lost, because that tends to happen quite a bit when I say something. So what I want to do is make a motion that we pause.
We're in the middle of a motion. We're having discussion.
Oh.
Uh-huh.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay,
So we had a motion. I moved
I'm sorry.
on a motion. It was seconded. This is the discussion portion.
Oh.
Now we have to have a
Oh,
vote.
let me say something about this then, because it's a lot of assumptions with while we at our central kitchen was moved, but it was something that happened in between Service Center and it being at Northwestern. I don't remember everything, but I do remember we didn't sell anything because the building we were in, we didn't own in the first place.
Exactly.
So we didn't sell anything, just to clear up that assumption. And the second thing is, when it was presented to us, it was the best fit at that time, which, like the president said, we had to find a place to feed our babies.
The suggestion, if you
Go
don't
ahead.
mind,
No,
the
okay.
suggestion at the time when we made the decision,
Mhm.
when that board made the decision was to rent somebody else's restaurant,
Yep, that's what it was.
renovate their restaurant,
Yep.
stay there for 2 or 3 years,
Yep.
and then in 2 or 3 years have to find somewhere else to go. So
You
it
fix
seemed
that up
like
too.
to the board, common sense would be to fix our own stuff
Mhm.
and try to get our buildings decent so that we can educate our kids, feed our kids, and whatever else we wanted to do with our kids. So when we came up, when we ended up having to make that decision, we were already out of the cyber center,
Long time ago.
homeless with our meals, feeding our babies on a wing and a prayer. So that's why we are at Northwestern.
I said I'd like to look at the transition.
I understand that, but you also asked why did the board make those decisions? I was on the board at that time, so that portion I can explain to you. That other stuff I cannot, but the part that I can explain to you, that's what we just did. That's why we decided that, and that's how we ended up there. Putting money into Northwestern. And is there any other discussion?
Mike, can I just, and keeping in mind, we hadn't even made a final decision by Northwestern. We have had discussions about Northwestern and the public, what the public like to have see done. And that, I think that we're kind of moving ahead, trying to, I don't know what you're looking for, but at the same time, keeping in mind that Northwestern is not a done deal. We have not made a final decision on Northwestern. There's two different conversations going. They probably go there stripping parts out and taking them all over places, which making that be a concern. However, the kitchen is over there now. We've done invested a lot of money in that. And
That's what
looking
I'm
at the
saying.
past, it's not gonna fix too many things. And if we can get her those documents, she can make a request for them and give her the documents that she's looking for to satisfy what she's looking for. And let's kind of move forward. But this is good conversation. You have done a fantastic job
Thank you.
and demonstrating to where we're at and where we're going and what we need to do. And I appreciate your honesty in that part. So saying all of that, I do want to go back to this, how we got this calendar situation.
We in the middle of a vote.
Oh, we in the midst, okay, we sure, okay. Oh, yeah, sure did. Okay, sorry. We get kind of
Okay.
distracted here.
The
Okay.
motion was to put air in central kitchen for the people that are working there today. That's got to be in there
And gonna be
cooking
there for a while.
every day in the heat.
Yeah, I'm not a cook, but I know it gets hot in the kitchen. So it's definitely something that, I would support. But it feels like also that the financial picture is different than when you came to us in 2019, understanding the ARPA dollars and the potential use for our facilities and the upgrades that it could take. So while I support this, it's my hope that we have a broader conversation as it relates to the overall footprint of our districts and when we see investment from an infrastructure standpoint.
I thought that I had made a motion at one time to fix Northwestern's heating and cooling, which was supposed to be about $4 million, and thought I had got support on that. I'm pretty sure. But we're gonna settle this motion right here to at least get, really, you know what? Strike that motion. Can I strike that and broaden my motion? Because I like to make a motion, because he never said how much it cost to, because the bottom line is all of our buildings got to be renovated. Northwestern ain't the only one that's
Yes.
in disarray with asbestos. All of them got asbestos pretty much. Ain't none of them in no better shape. And if they are, it's because the time and the effort has been put into them. So I'm going to move that we complete the renovations on Northwestern, heating and cooling, the HVAC system. Again, because I know I said this before. Houston Stadium, we discussed, because our students play football over there. Seems like with all this money coming in the district, we should be able to get bleachers for the kids. Jesus Christ. And some air for these people, all the whole building, because whatever is wrong with the building, let's get it done. So I'm gonna say it again, because I know I said this before. So we can have one completely functioning in decent order, that's not a health and safety hazard building. Let's just have one. Let's start with one and work on 2, 3, and 4, because we're one, a little bit here, a little bit there, a little bit there, a little bit there, and we're never getting nothing done. You got air, but it's a dump. I mean, let's get some air. Let's have a new kitchen, because that's what I thought we had agreed on at the time that we were working towards. Okay, so the motion is this. I move that we finish renovations on Northwestern, starting with HVAC and cooling, heating, cooling, whatever the terminology is for a whole heating and cooling process, and to start renovations on Houston Stadium. That's what I'm moving for. So can I get some support? No? Okay, so the motion died.
No, I got a question about what you said, because I like the first motion better, because the
Well, we
kitchen
can
is,
start with central kitchen, but let's eventually finish all of it though.
I don't disagree with that, but what I do think is that central kitchen air for sure, and I
Mhm.
think that's an urgency. But I think we need to focus on the building where the kids are. I think that should be the priority. And no kids are in Northwestern, right? So I don't think that should be the priority, not the entire building,
Mm.
but the central kitchen, absolutely.
Yeah,
But I think priority is where the students are.
yeah, eventually, but I agree with that. But I think eventually we got to come full circle with some buildings.
Eventually,
But
yeah.
okay, go
You
ahead.
said something about the stadium, that, because the kids do need the stadium. And if we looking at fixing something, we maybe look at doing that stadium or,
I mean, well, we don't want no air for the central kitchen.
yeah, but doing,
Oh,
we're gonna do,
absolutely.
yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so y'all want the original motion.
I think so. That's just where that's how. I
Is
feel.
that a possibility to just fix a section though, and that, do we?
Yeah, you would want to put a separate unit
Like you
in
said,
that
yes.
area, which makes a lot of sense.
Okay,
Because otherwise you've got to run the entire building just to get cooling there. And
to one spot. Okay, I understand. Okay.
But that's not central
say
air,
what?
right? That's
It's
just
some
a
air.
separate unit.
It would be a
seemed like it's
separate unit. Well, let me get our engineers to look at it. We may be able to put cooling coils in the units that we refurbish for central kitchen.
Mm.
If not, it would have to be a completely separate air handling unit with cooling, a cooling only unit. But Ms. Stewart, I can look at that.
Is that what you're talking about, Carol, or are you talking
Well,
about central air?
I was talking about central air, because I thought that's where the direction we was heading. What
It's
our,
not
okay.
feasible.
So what are you talking about?
Essentially, it would be central air for the kitchen area,
Okay.
not for the whole building. I mean, if we're talking about for the whole building, we're
Well,
back to your.
they said they don't want to do the whole building right now, but like I said, I'm hoping that eventually we get all the buildings done,
Eventually, yeah.
including Northwestern. I mean, I don't understand.
I think that's where the facility study makes a lot of sense.
Can I just add that Mrs. Dumpray has shared our facilities assessment is complete. We're just waiting on the data to come back. And hopefully, the month of September, we'll be able to share that data with you. That's our target. We're shooting for the month of September, but they completed MDE. Yes, Ms. Dumpre? Thank you. Thank you. The building utilization is complete. They're currently working on the facilities assessment, and hopefully we'll have that data to share with you in September.
Okay.
That's the goal.
Okay, Mr. Walker.
No, I was just going to say I agree with Trustee Green about, again, looking at Central Kitchen and the area within that space. But also, again, I don't want to be redundant, but going back to that conversation around all of our facilities, because I agree as it relates to Houston Stadium. And again, got a chance to do a tour there recently as well. The framework is still there, but there's a lot of love that needs to go into that space, especially thinking that I believe next Friday is our first game, and just looking at the condition of that stadium is just not up to par. So I hope, again, when we have that broader discussion, that, again, that's taken into consideration.
Okay, so the motion is to get central air to Central Kitchen and to start the repairs for Houston Stadium immediately. What is this? What?
Well, we need the stadium, because,
Yeah, if we starting games, I mean,
Can I add something about Houston Stadium?
mhm.
So I know that Mr. Jones has been meeting with Mr. Foster in regards to the needs of Houston Stadium. And I believe that information was brought to the academic subcommittee on Monday. Due to the cost, we have to do RFPs.
Okay.
To get the work started at Houston Stadium. And so we're in the process of, Mr. Foster is in the process of gathering quotes, giving those quotes to Mr. Jones so that we can start doing the RFPs to get the work going on Houston Stadium. So just wanted to share that.
Thank you for that. I couldn't put it together like that, but that's absolutely, we talked about extensive conversation about it.
so are we still in the midst of a motion?
Yeah, I don't have a second.
So the motion is just Central Kitchen,
That's what,
or,
yeah, that's what y'all said.
but you said the stadium too, so we taking that
No,
out?
the stadium too. The stadium need work on. I mean, whenever they can get it together, let's go. We ain't no need not making the motion and then coming back making the motion. If we gonna make the motion, let's have a motion on the floor, and then when they able, they can start working.
So do we need a motion that we already in the process of doing it though? You know what I'm saying? Because that's what we talked about at the academic subcommittee Monday.
I think we should have a motion just in case somebody want to change their mind.
Oh, okay. I'm with that. And they can't do it overnight. We just talked about it
So,
Monday.
I mean, I'm agreeing with a lot of it, but logistically, I feel really uncomfortable with just sort of like jumping in and saying, hey, let's do this. We need a strategic plan. My God, like we need a comprehensive plan, and we need to look at the entire thing. I mean, if we're going to say, we're going to like do this for the kitchen, we're going to do this for the stadium. I mean, we also talked about in the academic subcommittee partnering to use Atwood Stadium for a time being. I mean, we need to be systematic and very careful stewards of this money. We can't just say, I'm going to make a motion and let's go put in the, cooling system here and let's do this. We need a plan. And so I agree with you that sitting here with it feeling real hot, I want, the air conditioner to go in like yesterday, but we really need a strategic, and I'm glad we have the building utilization and the facility assessment coming up, but we need a plan. We need.
I agree that we need a strategic plan, but I don't think we need a strategic plan to know that people that's working in Central Kitchen need air. I seem like we should be able to handle that.
Right, but I mean, in terms of the financials that we looked at in terms of Houston Stadium were like $3 million. So this isn't just something that we can make a motion on and then move forward with very quickly. Like, again, I think we need to, renovate our sports facilities. Absolutely. But we need to do it in a way that's going to be cost effective, that's going to be encompassing of a broader academic and, you know, like plan for the whole, what's it called? The whole district.
Well, I think they used the stadium, the district used the stadium.
Right, but you're talking about fixing it up, and it's like, like, an estimate for fixing it up would be like $3 million.
I mean, because it's not gonna be cheap to fix a stadium.
Danielle, I understand that. I'm just, oh, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
That's all right.
I'm like, Carol, I understand. It's just, it's not something that I think that we can make a motion on and then follow. It's impractical. Like, how are we going to follow through with a $3 million motion? Like, we'd have to do an.
Well, you got $100 and some in ESSER fund. You don't want to spend them on nothing?
How did you get from
I don't know.
what I just said to that conclusion? That doesn't make any sense.
I mean, the same
didn't
way
say
you
that.
get from everywhere somebody else say back to you need all these documents and we don't be.
No,
the same- it's
don't
the same.
conflate those issues. That's a straw man argument. That's
Yes, ma'am.
ridiculous.
Could we separate, we're talking about, we know that kitchen need some type of modification of an air condition. Could we agree upon that in a motion? My next suggestion in regards to the state, and we have a good relationship with Kettering, and I can't think of the guy's name. Maybe somebody can remember that, and that the athletic department use Atwood Stadium until we,
Okay.
so they can have somewhere nice and decent. It's time for us to start pushing our kids. So we call them scholar, but when you mention spending $1 on them, they become kids and babies. Either they scholars or they babies. And because when we start talking about money, then we reverse our thinking process. If they're a scholar, then they should be over at Atwood, using that stadium until we get to where we want to get. I will make a motion. You know, I'm going to agree with the motion if we do the air condition for the kitchen for now.
Okay, well, I withdraw the motion, period, and somebody else make the motion. Because my thing is, who gonna go over there and ask that with stadium, and how long you gonna rent that, and, you know.
So what did you say about Atwood?
So I'm gonna withdraw the motion and allow somebody else to make the motion. So I withdraw the motion.
For the air condition?
For everything. And I'm gonna let somebody else make the motion. Whatever, central air
Yeah,
conditioning.
central air.
I'm thinking units, but I'm just wondering.
No.
Okay, so we can move on then. What's next?
No, we need the motion. Come on, y'all.
Let's
We
make
need
a
the
motion.
motion.
Go ahead.
And I don't disagree with your motions. You
Right.
know what I'm saying?
I
just wasn't
understand, no, I
sure.
understand that but like I said, you know, then we either gonna have central air or we not.
Let's do it.
Yeah, either our scholars need stuff or it don't, because if we can't afford it now, we can't afford it later. But like I said, when we giving grown people money,
We
okay,
do that or not?
we don't
Yeah.
worry about where we're gonna get it from. But every time it's time for these babies to get something good, well, we just shouldn't blow that money. We got to think.
And your motion will be the first step in getting the process going for Edward, I think, because Mr. Foster and Anita, I trust Mr. Foster, I trust
Right,
Mr. Stewart. So I think your motion is appropriate.
Yes.
It is appropriate.
Okay,
I'm gonna let somebody else make it.
I got my own motion to make, so
Right.
let's do it.
Okay, are we moving on, or who is somebody gonna make the motion?
I'm gonna make the motion. I'm gonna make it. I'm gonna make this one too, because I got one after this, right? So the motion is to get central kitchen, central air, whatever that takes, whatever that looks like. Can I get a support? Right?
Support.
Support.
Thank you.
The motion has been supported. The motion has been made and supported. Is there any discussion?
Can I ask what you think of that
In terms of,
in terms of how it's been worded and
so if you're simply asking for that space to be air conditioned, that's probably a good enough blanket statement, because we don't know exactly what needs to be done because it hasn't been contemplated yet. It's not rocket science, but you just need to kind of take a walk through the space and
The engineers, as you said. to take
you
a
get
look.
the engineers there. I used to be an engineer, but I went to the dark side and went to management a long time ago, as my friends would say. So we'll get the right folks there, and then we'll come back with some solutions, Ms. Stewart, and then you can make a determination once we do that.
can I ask him another
And,
question?
Okay, well, this is discussion on Danielle's motion.
Right, but can I ask
Pursue.
him another question?
Just 1 second. So y'all gonna have the game at Houston Stadium or y'all gonna take it to Kettering?
Separate motion.
Okay.
I'm not saying I have to do the motion for
Oh,
that.
no, you can, go
Anybody.
ahead. Okay, go ahead, Laura.
So if we end up not utilizing Northwestern, is this still a good idea to, as a temporary fix, to get the kitchen air conditioned? And would we be able to, are we throwing money away if we end up not using Northwestern?
I would say if we're going to look at air conditioning that kitchen and you're not 100% sold that that's a long-term solution, that we look at a solution where perhaps we put a piece of equipment in that could be used in one of the other buildings, because not all the buildings have air conditioning in the gym, the auditoriums. And so if we look at doing something that we can move that piece of equipment over to one of the other spaces, then it's probably not a waste of money.
So I would support that, but I mean, I think what I'm worried about is that it's important for the kitchen clearly to have air conditioning. These aren't our kids. I mean, we talk about putting the kids first. So what about the classrooms? We're talking about the kitchen. I mean, I get it. It's important. But again, I think we're putting the cart before the horse. We're talking about a system in a building that we aren't even sure we'll be able to use going forward, or that we are going to use going
People are
forward.
in there cooking right
I
now.
understand that.
So
And
they should
children
have
are
a heat
doing their
stroke. So they should have a
learning.
heat stroke in there?
Hmm?
Should they have a heat stroke then?
You just say if we did not, if we can use that air conditioning unit somewhere else, if we decide that we're not going to be at Northwestern.
I think if the future of that kitchen is in question, I will instruct their engineers to look at solutions where we could use the equipment in other places.
Okay.
Now, you will have some sunk costs because you're not going to
Yeah.
take the piping out and put it in another building, but the equipment's the expensive part. So if we look ahead and plan just in case, I think that will definitely lessen the blow of you feeling like you've wasted money in that facility. Does that make sense?
It's not about money. It's about how far that we've got a limited amount of resources, and this is the kitchen, which is important, but we also have our students. We have the classrooms.
Nobody's saying don't get the students air. We're not talking about the students. We're talking
I
about,
understand that.
the motion is about central kitchen.
It really doesn't necessarily have to be one or the other if it's determined that air conditioning falls under the guidelines of the ESSER funds, because there's a pretty tight
And it
window
does.
with that, but they also say that this is an interim guidance. So that's a whole nother discussion about ESSER and what fits and what doesn't, but you've got sufficient funding where it doesn't have to be necessarily one or the other. If you really look at every building and kind of plan where those dollars are best spent.
So what if we have a motion about not just the kitchen, but where the air conditioning is needed right now, like as an emergency stopgap? I mean,
We in the middle of a motion,
we're in the middle of a discussion about a motion.
but you extending the motion and changing
No,
the
I'm
motion.
having a discussion about
Okay,
the
well,
motion.
I don't have no answers for you, so I don't know what you want me to tell you. I don't even understand what you
I'm not asking you
asking.
to tell me anything. I'm having a discussion, which is part of how Robert's Rules of
Okay,
Order
when you
work.
keep looking over here, I'm sorry.
Where do you want me to look?
Over there somewhere. Is there any
She told me
further
not to look at
discussion?
her, so I'm looking over here.
Let's go ahead.
And
Anybody?
yet
Right.
I don't know what she done. Okay, it's time to vote.
Okay.
Those in favor of getting some air over in Central Kitchen,
Mhm.
say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. The ayes have it, the motion passes to get, I said aye. Aye. Oh, the motion passes. The ayes have it. You're mad on
I want to do my other motion. Can somebody else
Go
do the Houston Stadium motion? I'll just do let me do the balance calendar motion because I've been on here heavy.
Yeah.
So my motion for the balance calendar is to pause it, halt it, stop it until we can get an environment for teachers, staff, students that's healthy and conducive to learning. That's my motion.
Since school has already started, school started August 4th, we will need to check in with MDE to see if so we can change it right now. And I don't think that we can, but I will make some phone calls to MDE tomorrow. But I don't think that we can stop a school year that we've already started. We could say for, future years, but I don't think that we can stop this school year.
Okay, so let's find out for sure, but my motion still remains. And if we can, let's do it. If not, I get it. Is that fair?
Can I support?
Please do.
Support.
Miss Rubin has her hand.
We can't hear. Can you get the mic? No, that's okay.
I just wanted to also inform you that that's a negotiable item
Oh, is it? Okay.
in bargaining units.
Mhm.
So we would actually have to get legal consult on that as well.
Okay.
And get the unions to say that they're willing to pause the school year, send all the kids home and readjust the calendar because that's a part of their work life
I get it.
and it affects their working conditions
Thank you.
because they have already started as the
I get it.
superintendent.
And I understand that, but my motion is still what it is. Okay, thank you, Georgina. And I thought too, maybe if we could do all virtual again. I don't know, I'm just saying this to get them out of those hot buildings because I don't know how they do it. And teachers and staff, it's a lot. So thanks for your support.
Is there any further discussion?
Yeah, I had a discussion. I wasn't on the board when the decision was made around balanced calendar, but something that I hear often is as it relates to like enrollment, right? I believe enrollment, there's a trickle in, but I feel like after Labor Day, you get an uptick
Mhm.
in terms of enrollment, right? Because a lot of people hold their kids back until after Labor Day.
Mhm.
The other thing I think about though is also the recovery piece and the information that's out there about, again, the potential for either longer school days or balanced calendars to kind of alleviate some of that loss of learning. So it's an interesting thing. I'll be interested to see what you both find out from a legal standpoint. But again,
Right.
to Trustee's point, it is something I think about because again, it seems like enrollment is a little bit down, and from what you're hearing, a lot of people are going to come back after Labor Day anyway.
Mhm.
McIntyre?
With permission, President McIntosh, to Superintendent Stewart, I know that we had one day where we had an emergency heat day and that we do have contingencies for snow days and things like that. Is that something that this situation would fall under that wouldn't necessarily require, a change in a calendar like after school has started, but is there, because I know there's certain limitations to how many days you can call as a snow day or how many days you can call as a heat day. But if the heat is where it's dangerous, is there something with school policy about that we could?
So we get 6 days that are forgiven. So, and this is included with the heat days and the snow days. So we get a total of 6 that are forgiven.
Have we already taken one? We've already taken 2.
No, we've already taken 1, but can I also add that the first 3 days of school, we did not make 75% attendance. And you have to make 75% attendance in order for those days to count. So as of right now, we are already down 4 days, and we still have winter to come. And we know that in Michigan, winter is not, it's not very, we have some snow days, and we have some snow days normally in winter time, in the winter. So therefore, we still have a possible of 2. I've been looking at the weather. Friday is projected, and I know this is it's hot period. Let me say that it is hot period, and I have been working with CSM and JCI to see what we could do to relieve the buildings because it is so hot. And I do want to circle back around to a statement that I made last week. But I've been looking at the weather, and Friday is projected to be the hottest day. Now, if we were going to be we're not in school Friday. We don't have school on Friday. Our staff and our students have Friday off. But if we were going to be in school on Friday, Friday would have been a day that I would have closed as a heat day. But since we're not in school and the kids are off, that's not a day that we have to look at. And so this today when I came in, I was talking to Ray with CSM, and we were with JCI about what it is that we can do, because my suggestion last week, and I'm not an operations person, I'm just trying to do whatever it is that I can to cool off these classrooms. And so I suggested the portable air conditioners, but with the portable air conditioners, you have to vent them. And I thought that there were some out there, and the one that I had, we could just plug in and you could go, but you can't. You have to vent it through the windows, which means that we would have to replace all of the windows in all 100. I think we need 110 and 110 classrooms, right? So JCI says, Anita, that's going to be a sunken cost because you're going to have air in December and you're not going to use those air conditioning units ever again. So we were talking about, well, what else can we do? Because we have to give some relief so that the environment can be conducive to learning. What else can we do? And so we're going to go back to the drawing board again on tomorrow, sit down and figure out what we can do. One thing that CSM recommended was to go buy some large fans, put them in a hallway, and just have the air circulating one way. Okay, I can go to Home Depot. I can take my truck to Home Depot and pick up some large fans if that is going to work. And so we're just still looking through what it is that we can do, and hopefully tomorrow we'll sit down as an entity of 3 and hammer it out. But I just want you guys to know we're still, every time we get one thought, we come up with a roadblock. That because whether it's the buildings and how old they are, and that's not going to work. We get another thought, okay, let's go. We come up with another roadblock. We get another thought, we come up with another roadblock. So we've been working through this since last week nonstop, and we're going to continue to work through it. And so I just wanted to share that with the board.
Ms. McNeil.
President Jim, Superintendent Anita, you say you guys going to be closed Friday. That's not administration, is it? Is the administration building closed Friday?
The administration building will be open on Friday, but the school buildings, yes, ma'am, staff and students in the school buildings, they do not have to work on this Friday.
I don't know, did Danielle ask that question when it gets so hot and the weather is getting, not, the temperature is not great enough for them to be in school? Could they do virtual learning? Can you do, because we didn't really close completely out of virtual learning, and we still in a pandemic, and it falls under that pandemic rule that we might have to do virtual learning on that day. Have we thought about looking at that?
Mm-hmm. So we have been thinking through those pieces, and we've been working with our bargaining units around those pieces, as well as working with MDE, because technically, MDE does not see schooling like they did last year. Last year, we had the option to go back and forth from face-to-face and virtual. Actually, the board had the option to go back and forth between face-to-face and virtual. This year, we don't have that option. All of those rules no longer apply this year. We only have the face-to-face option as a district unless you as a parent decides that you want your child to be in virtual learning, and then your child can be enrolled in a virtual learning program. But we as a district no longer have that power to go back and forth. But what I did have Dina Sains, who is over our data and scheduling of our clock hours. I asked her to reach out to MDE last week because we only have 6 days, right? And we know that sometimes snow days, we get a lot of them, and we could get some more heat days, and we have to call them off.
Okay, if we had 3 half days already, so then could they look at that, we got 3 more half days we can use to make it a 4-day? Because remember, we had 3 half days already.
So this is what we received last week from MDE of what we could do. Once we get past our 6 days, because after you get past the 6th day, you have to start making days up, right? So instead of calling days off after the 6th day, your kids could do virtual learning, but they can't stay. So they could only be virtual for that heat day or virtual for that snow day, but then they got to come back, right? So if we would normally have a snow day and we'd call 1 day off, they could go virtual that day and then the next day come back to school. But that's the only permission that we've been granted thus far is after the 6th day, so that you don't have to make any days up on the end of the year, at the end of the year.
Okay, I'd like to remind the board, can we save our questions because we still have 2 more speakers?
Yes.
Dr. Laura Sullivan is here and Vertec is here. We don't want to hold them up.
And I'm writing it down. Okay.
So I think we are in the middle of, they said that we had to bargain that for you. So are we tabling your,
I don't want to say, no.
so we have to close that out. So the motion was seconded by you?
Right.
What's the motion again?
To pause the balance calendar, is that my understanding?
Pause, stop, hold, whatever you want to call it. Because it's not conducive to learning for children. It's not, I don't think it's safe either, because we're not doing the deep cleaning anymore. CDC, when they came and did the presentation, they said it wasn't necessary and we weren't not doing deep
But she
cleaning.
was saying that we can't just pause it on our own. We have to negotiate.
I get that, but I still want my motion until
With a memory,
she wasn't sure. She said she had to find out some things. So until we do that, I still want my motion to
should we
carry.
be doing it with her sometime?
Those in support say aye.
Y'all not supporting my motion?
I supported it. What we was trying to do is say, there was some type of memorandum of understanding. She understood what they were saying.
Mhm.
She wants to, keep the motion
Absolutely.
with that memorandum of understanding that might change once we get all the data.
Information,
That's-
yeah.
Yes.
You still gotta take over.
Okay, yeah. I just want to make sure that statement is in there. I don't want people to think we don't know what we're doing here and they'll be running
Ms.
around.
Georgina?
That's why I was gonna ask, Board Member Green, if she could amend her motion to say pending to a discussion as
Okay.
opposed to a motion to pause. Because legally,
Okay,
I can't.
okay. Makes sense.
We talked about regressive bargaining. That would be regressive bargaining.
Okay, so you want me to amend my motion to, again, tell me again one more
To
time?
have the discussion about the balance calendar.
And that discussion is the
Under
information.
negotiations,
Right.
while we're negotiating, if
Okay.
you could amend, then we would have this discussion and we would bring this back up. Because we've already TA'd the calendar.
Okay, makes sense.
It's in place. So we would have to ask the unions if they would be willing to have the conversation
Gotcha.
and open that back up. Because once it's TA'd, as you know, what we had in our previous discussions.
Yeah, okay, so I amend my motion to further discussion for stopping balance calendar.
Support.
Okay, okay, at this time, we've already had discussion. We're gonna take a roll call. We're not gonna even take a roll call
Can I
vote.
ask a question?
Go ahead.
Ms. Georgina, so
May I-
So asking the UTF to reopen that point of discussion, that would not be regressive or regarded as regressive?
it's already in place. So we're asking not to make the change, but to have the discussion for future years. So no, I cannot change the calendar this year. And it's a 2-year calendar. The second year calendar has not been TA'd as of yet. So the discussion is to have it for the second year, beginning the 22-23 school year.
Would not view that as regressive.
That's why I'm asking if we could have the discussion.
Right, and I'm
texting Karen now. I'm texting her now. So I got Karen on the line. When I get an answer, I will respond.
Now, not next year. She wants
Right.
to have the discussion.
Right, so we cannot change the calendar, the 21-22 calendar. It's in place, it's done.
Okay.
We've already started.
So
Like
meaning,
superintendent said, but during negotiations, I can ask if they would be willing to have the discussion for the 22-23 school year.
and I want to say it's more than just the UTA. It's other staff members too. I'm sure that we have to include, right? I know the teachers is your thing, but we got to consider all staff. Oh, yes, it is. So we got to consider all staff. So I'm not saying that it can be done, but I still want my motion to remain. Where the motion go, I don't know, but I'm still wanting to stay on the floor. Okay, thank you, Georgina. We got to consider all staff.
I
Is
just
it-
don't want to violate
We
any of
gotta
the labor.
consider all
I agree,
staff.
I agree,
But
but
you
I don't
always
want
say
to,
you, I mean, that's your thing, Lauren. I'm not knocking it, but I want to say,
you are not getting
everybody-
it,
well,
actually.
take
You're-
it how you wanna take it.
Excuse me, Ms.
I take it how you
McIntyre.
wanna take it.
Because,
both
wait,
of
wait,
them.
hold on, because it's
Not
her
just-
motion. It's her motion.
It's
Hold on.
my motion.
But I
Is
had
she-
a question.
But she wasn't, well, you started talking to her about her motion.
So I still haven't had the
Okay, well,
question. She's
okay, well,
trying to
ask
find
your
out- I
question.
did ask the question, Carol. I asked the question if that would be considered regressive, and we're getting the answer to that. I don't want to vote on something where it would be a labor violation
I
that would be
understand.
considered
Teachers,
regression,
she said.
not just for the
But
teachers.
that's what you said.
Well, it would also be a regressive, it would be regression for the parapros, for
Well,
their
excuse-
contract that we're already entered into.
Order. She gonna get in touch with the union. They gonna tell us if it's regressive bargaining, progressive bargaining. That's what the union do. So she said she's gonna take it to the union. She just said that.
I understand. I don't want to vote on it, though.
Well, don't vote or say no. But we're voting on it because the motion passed, if it's all right with you. Can we vote on it? Thank you.
You passed.
All right. Where are we at? Jesus. The vote, because we're voting. Do you have any other questions? Seeing there is none, those in favor for having Ms. Georgina speak with the unions to see if it's a conversation that could be had, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed say nay.
Nay.
Motion passes 4 yes, 1 no. Thank you. At this time, before we proceed with our meeting, I have invited Dr. Laura Sullivan to join us this evening to address questions from the board regarding the smart water fountains. Please come up to the microphone, Dr. Sullivan.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Only good news.
Great.
Only good news. I had sent a presentation. Okay, all right. While he's getting that up, I can summarize. You might recall that the as shipped, we called them hydration stations, had a couple of defects, potential defects. One was that there's firmware in the drinking fountain that signals when the UV light should turn on. UV light is present to kill bacteria and viruses. That firmware wasn't working in one of the two drinking fountains that we checked. The second thing is that there's two different filtration methods in these drinking fountains. One is the carbon block filter, that kind of like a Brita filter. That's really good at getting rid of metals, namely lead. copper. It does not get rid of bacteria. So the second type is like a membrane that has pores in it that are so small that bacteria can't pass through. We call that, it's either called an ultrafilter or a microfilter. And the microfilter or ultrafilter in these units, for one of the two, let all the bacteria through. Drinking fountains would not provide. So that is one reason why we had a little bit of a delay along with the pandemic. We identified these problems right around the 1st of February 2020. We brought in the manufacturer of the UV system, who was very happy to come right away, and found out that the company that assembled these units, the company that put in the filter that was unmarked, also failed to put in updated firmware that they had been sent. So the manufacturer of the UV light, which also supplies this firmware, happily gave us updated firmware for the two machines that we were testing and committed to, down the road, whenever it happened, to come and evaluate every single drinking fountain here to find out which ones, if any, have that problem, to replace the firmware in those units. So one of these two problems is fixable, easily fixable without a cost. During the pandemic, we spent 6-7 months back and forth with the manufacturer regarding the filter that seemed to not work in one of two cases. One of the kind of awkward situations I was in is that because it's my role to independently evaluate these, it wouldn't be appropriate for me to make a recommendation about which filter to put inside, because then I couldn't independently say that they were working. The manufacturer, however, wasn't willing to go on his own and look into this. He went to Korea and looked for Korean filters, which didn't even meet specifications. And ultimately, with Anita and the facilities person who was here at the time, we decided just to take this offline and find a filter that would work ourselves. So we were able to identify a filter that's made by 3M. I wish I could tell you how much it costs. It's under $100 a piece. I don't know exactly how much. And that filter has both the activated carbon block and the membrane in it. So it's one unit that would do what the other two units did. So we purchased those, we put them in the two units, we took the updated firmware that we've been provided, put those in the two units, and we were able to start testing January of this year. So the whole process of doing this test involved growing two different solutions that have certain bacteria in them. So we know that the water supply in that biofilm being scratched and making these bacteria present. Legionella is a biofilm producing bacteria. So Legionella is present in lots and lots of systems, but it's not a big issue as long as those films are disrupted by precipitates or whatever. So we chose two bacteria that one is a biofilm forming, one is not, that aren't dangerous, right? Because we're doing this in a laboratory at a school, but they behave in that way. We had to grow the bacteria. Okay, here we are. Cool. So here's the unit in the lab, in the micro lab, sitting on top of a cart. Go ahead, and there's the list of the 3 kinds of barriers to contamination. Okay, next slide. So here's the activated carbon block. In the picture on the left, that carbon block is inside. I'm looking down into the unit. But in the picture on the right, you can see 2 filters that are sort of elevated up from the drinking fountain, and it's the one on the left. That's the activated carbon block. The one on the right, without any label or anything on it, that is the microfilter or ultrafilter. Go ahead to the next one. So here's some pictures of where that ultrafilter is located or was located in these units. Next one. And this is the UV light. So what I've gotten in my hand is the light itself. The water just passes through the center of a vessel that's lit up with UV light, and that light can go through the tube, clear tube, and it basically makes it impossible for viruses or bacteria to reproduce. So essentially killing the population. Go ahead to the next one. This is another component that's really important to the use of the UV light. It's called a solenoid. There's a solenoid and then there's a flow meter. And together, those 2 instruments let the UV light know when water's flowing. So the light will turn on when the water's flowing, and then it will turn off. It doesn't have to be on all the time. Next slide. So here's a calendar. We got the 2 units in November of 19. We were told that the water pressure should be at a minimum 60 psi to be able to, for water to push through this porous membrane. So I had whoever was in charge at the time get me the pressure levels of the water at each of the school buildings, and I'll show you those in a moment. And then, like I said, we had testing that started in January, and by February, we were finding problems. Next slide. So the board members can see this. Unfortunately, all in the audience probably can't, but the pressure levels rarely rose above 60 psi in the buildings. In many cases, they were in the 40s. That's because there's so much water loss in our system. Many people who live in Flint complain about low water pressure. Why is it different in different buildings? Well, it depends on how far that building is from the treatment center and how many times the water flow is split between valves before it gets there. When I saw these numbers, I was really worried about, would we even be able to run the water through the drinking fountains? Went back to the manufacturer who said, oh, I said 60, I meant 40. I can't tell you how uncomfortable I am with the manufacturer of these drinking fountains. Anyway, so we proceeded. In fact, if the water pressure were to get too low for any of these drinking fountains, what would happen is that the flow would get really slow. As the flow starts to get really slow, it's either because there's been a lot of precipitate that's gotten clogged up the filters, or the water pressure's dropped, or both. So it's not like it would be a safety issue. It would be a function issue if the pressure was too low. Okay, next slide. So these are, like I mentioned, these are the problems that we found the first time we ran the second unit. The UV light didn't turn on and bacteria passed through the ultrafilter. Next slide. So our recommendations were to get a different ultrafilter that has certification, and that we could talk to the manufacturer if we found any issues, and update the firmware in the UV. Next slide. Okay, so pandemic hits, we have to shut down our micro lab, so we can't do any more testing, but we did use that time to try to identify a replacement filter. Eventually, We were able to identify this 3M filter that functions in the same way as the two filters do in the original. We restarted testing in February and we finished our testing in May. Next slide. So we've got some data to show you here. This is the data with the first of 2 bacteria. My glasses aren't even good enough for this. Thank you. So you see on the left, the results from the first hydration station. On the right, the results from the second. The column that matters is the % reduction in bacteria. And you can see for each one, we did the test 3 times. On the third test, for one of the stations, we had 99.997% reduction instead of 100% reduction, which really it's just a small number of bacteria that's counted there. And it could have been the result of it being the third test, but it's still outstanding. Okay, next slide. All right, this is the second bacteria. And you can see we have 99.99% reduction and 100 twice for both of these stations. And again, the microbiologist gave some indication as why it might be that we had 99.99%, although within the range of error, I think it's pretty much the same as 100%. Certainly well beyond what I would hope for. The next slide shows the lead and copper results. We didn't conduct these tests. They were conducted at Arch Environmental, which is going to be doing the field testing. We don't have the means for testing for lead and copper at Kettering. And you can see 3 runs. In this case, the first for each run is the lead level and then copper, and then lead and then copper and so on. So for station number 1, every lead test, every copper test, there was no detection of lead or copper. For hydration station number 2, in the second test, the copper level was 20 micrograms per liter, which is way below it's necessary. The lead levels were never detected. This is very good at removing lead. Okay, next slide is the last test. Oh, back up 1. Yeah, there we go. So this is what some might call a worst case scenario test. It's better described as we have the solution, it has bacteria in it. We add what you might describe as fine dust particles. And the purpose of this is to make the water not be clear, but kind of murky. And it's really a test of the UV light. So the UV light will only be effective to a certain extent if the water isn't already clear. So we were wanting to make sure that should something happen and there be some turbidity in the water, would that UV still work? And you can see in every case there was 100% reduction in bacteria. So it worked just great. Okay, next slide. What I've got last here is just recommendations for our next step. So we know that in a controlled laboratory environment where we know exactly what we're putting into the drinking fountains and measuring what's coming out, we can be very satisfied that these work really well. What the next step in the protocol would be to do this in the field. With each of the drinking fountains that are already installed, we want to measure the amount of bacteria and lead entering the building. So we'll take a sample of water, or Arch Environmental will take a sample of water going into the building, take a sample of water just before it goes into the drinking fountain, and taking a sample of water just after it comes out of the drinking fountain. And just being sure that they, in the field, work as well as they did in the laboratory. I have every reason to believe that they should, but it's good in case there's something going on with any one of these machines, just to make sure. My reason for testing water coming into the building and then testing water coming into the drinking fountain is that we know that there is lead in some parts of some buildings. And it's a good thing to know if there is no lead coming into the building, and there's lead right as it's going into the drinking fountain, that's lead in the building and not lead in the system. Our point here is to make sure there's no lead coming out of the drinking fountain, but it's good to know the environment that these drinking fountains sit in. So the steps involved here, the next steps involved, first step would be to inventory. Where are these drinking fountains right now? They are installed, they're not hooked up to the water. Before they get hooked up to the water, we want to have what we call a sampling valve put in the plumbing so that we could flush water before it goes into the drinking fountain or sample water before it goes into the drinking fountain. The manufacturer of the UV light, they're Aquasense is the name of the company. They will come through once we get the top off, and there's a really pretty simple test sequence of lights that come on each of these UV firmware that lets us know it's the right version. So they'll go through and check that. If it's not, they'll replace it. And then we need to bypass the two filters that are present, either take them out or just bypass them and put in the new filter that replaces them. Now, I've been in touch with 3M. They make this filter. They don't make a lot of this filter. We struggled with finding a replacement filter that would fit in the drinking fountain. We found this one, but we've been in touch with them. We've said, hey, there's a potential for not just Flint schools, but any of the schools that are looking at this kind of technology. And by the way, this technology isn't anywhere. Grand Blanc schools wouldn't have as good drinking fountain water as you will. Fenton won't have water as good coming out of the drinking fountains as we will, because of 3 different barriers that are present. So 3M stands to do well if they continue to make these. So we're getting ready to put out a Twitter sort of announcement. Good job, 3M. You're helping with Flint schools. Your filters work great. Please keep making them. Get them some good press, because we definitely are going to continue to need these. And maybe if they make them, others will make them, and the price might even drop a little bit, although they're very reasonable. So this is just sort of my idea of what steps need to be followed before we can say, kids, it's all good. And I don't think it's that big of a problem. Arch Environmental has worked with the schools and worked with us on the lead testing. They're also at the ready to come and take samples and then go ahead and let us know how well they're removing lead and bacteria. Any questions? Well, let me add one other. Over this time, since Kettering first started this work, there were lots of, sort of quiet comments about how long we were taking to get this done. And I was hesitant to point my finger at the manufacturer, because that was a big part of the reason. Of course, the pandemic was also a big part of the reason. But know that the microbiologists that I work with will work through the night sometimes to make sure, checked her numbers, brought students in, helped them learn how to do the same thing. I mean, I spent time at Hurley Hospital. I spent 2 weeks at Hurley Hospital because I drank water that made me very, very sick. And I don't drink water at my house. I boil it first. But I would drink water out of these drinking fountains without worrying. So I apologize that details and problems with the manufacturer kept it until May before we got these things certified. But I can feel incredibly confident that this is safer for the students and the Flint Community Schools. And that was the #1 goal.
Hi, thanks for coming out, Dr. Sullivan.
Sure.
And before we go any further, I understand what you've been through, the different fires, and you keep fighting for Flint. And I appreciate that you taken away from your busy schedule to come here. My question to you, what would you need from this board to make sure that your research continue uninterrupted? And what resources would you need to make sure
I'm 100% confident in you. You've been fighting for this ever since the water crisis. You and Mr. Art Woodson has been a great team, and I think you guys are our most trusted source right now. So tell me, what do you need from this board? So we don't have to come back and have this presentation to come back and say, job well done.
Well, first of all, this isn't research. You know, I want to be really clear here.
Okay.
Nothing about this is used for any kind of a research purpose. That's been done too many times to the people of Flint, and this was never our inclination. Dr. Ammerman and I actually decided when we finished, Flint Community Schools had paid half of the cost of this whole project up front, and we decided when we finished just not even to ask for the other half. Again, because we want to demonstrate that this was service that we wanted to do. So this isn't research. For this project to actually see its finish, we just need to get these these filters ordered. I think there's funding already set aside for that. And Goyette or whatever plumber you tend to use, we just need to bring them in to put those valves in. Again, that's not a big deal. And I'd be happy, I really would be really happy to go drinking fountain to drinking fountain with them and, you know, put my initials on the inside or something, or just to see this finished, because there was a point in time, and Art might remember, when the state of Michigan was poised to just have school children turn on all the faucets every morning. And these were school children who probably didn't have water at home.
Yeah.
And we're very happy to do testing on school water that would make the water look fine when it wasn't. And I spent a lot of nights feeling really, really depressed about that. And so this is a great day for me. And to see this done is an even better day. So nothing, that's all I would ever need. I mean, there's no research here. I'm going to be writing thank you notes to AquaSense and to 3M and everybody who's been part of this along the way.
Well, I'm gonna put Laura McIntyre to work. Maybe she can be your point of contact if you run into hiccups and getting
Sure.
this job done.
Sure.
Trustee McIntyre, would you mind working along with Dr. Sullivan?
Yep.
Oh, yeah, no, I don't mind. I would, when you were saying what steps to take, I'd like you actually to be more specific. Like, what do we need to do to get this up
In that
and
presentation, I hopefully you can just share it, but you know, there's just some, I kind of organize things in a certain order because I thought it was the most convenient order. But essentially, we need to replace the filters that are bad in all of them. We need to order those filters and replace them in all of them, all of the units. We need to have the manufacturer of the UV in so that they can test the firmware in every unit, and wherever it needs to be replaced, replace it. In my mind, those are two things we could do at the same time, right? Have the top off, do that, but it doesn't have to be at the same time. The other thing that has to happen before field testing is that the water has to be hooked up with a valve, not turned on, but hooked up with a valve so that we're ready for Arch Environmental. I don't know how long those things could take. I know that AquaSense can be here with a week's notice. I'm not teaching until the end of September, and so I can be here with an hour's notice. And then whenever we can finish that, Arch Environmental can do their work. I don't think that would take especially long. And then we could get the thumbs up and let kids drink.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm. Thank you.
Danielle,
I can't thank you enough for putting all this energy and
Yeah.
time into our students, our schools, and this community. I appreciate you very much.
Thank you.
My question to you is realistically, or just, you don't have to give me exact time, but a window of time, I should say, of when do you think we could have them in? If things go well with testing and we can have babies drinking clean water.
I think, well, first of all, I don't know how long it takes to get these filters. I don't know if
Right.
they've been ordered yet.
Okay.
But once they're here, If I had somebody, the plumber going along with, I think in a day, maybe 2, we could get the filters replaced and the firmware set. So I think in a week, certainly, we can get that done. I don't know how long they would take to put these valves in.
Okay.
I think there were like 120 of these drinking fountains. So,
Yeah.
that might take a little bit of time, but once that's done, then it's just a matter of sampling. We only called for 1 set of data from each. So it's not like in the lab where we took and ran the test in triplicate every time. In this case, they take a sample of the water at the entry to the building, a sample of the water at the entry to each drinking fountain, and a sample of water coming out of each drinking fountain. We'll definitely want to flush the system
Right.
on these and for a decent, good amount of time. But we could calculate how much volume there is in the system and know how long we need to flush. And because we don't want to put any of that stuff in these drinking fountains.
Right.
I don't know, I don't want to say how long a
Right.
plumber's going to take to do that stuff,
Right.
but I would think that we could get this all done in a month.
Okay, so the ball is in our court. We need to order the filters. Is that what we are? Am I understanding that
Yeah,
correct?
we need the filters and then probably some facilities person or the plumber to go with whoever's replacing things. You want somebody to be escorting them around the building to change the filters and like I said, AquaSense just
Okay.
needs a week's notice.
Okay, sounds good. So, okay.
Order process for filters are already in place and Goyette has already been contacted.
Okay, so another question to you. Are we keeping the Must Foundation abreast of what's going on? Because if it was my money and I had gave all that money to somebody, I would want to know what's going on. So have we been doing that, or are we going to do that? Or can we do that, I should say?
Yes, we have.
Okay.
Oh, good. Okay, so ultimately when they're done, we're gonna let them know that too.
Absolutely.
Just long as, because the relationship is important, I think, and the appreciation we have for them, I think they need to know. I'm sorry, need to know about it, okay?
It is.
Thank you,
but
ma'am.
They're not too happy right now, but yes.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that would be me, so I get it, okay.
Because it's taking
Thank-
so long for
Right.
this to happen.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Stephen, you got, okay, thank you. Dr. Sullivan, I also wanted to personally thank you for all the hard work that you've put in helping, our district and our scholars. I just have a technical question. So I know we've talked about filters and them being ordered. I believe you mentioned this before, but could you remind me what's the lifespan of the filters and maybe the UV light as well? Because the only reason I ask that is I want to make sure that we have enough so that we're not having any gap time in between.
Right. It's important that we flush the system really well. When you were talking about balanced calendar, one of the advantages of a balanced calendar is the water isn't as stagnant as long at any point in time, right? Not that that's a huge big deal, but you definitely want to have a sort of a maintenance sort of plan about flushing just to protect them. I would say that if you have that in place, that these filters should last a school year. They could probably last longer, but I would, to be safe, say that a school year would be probably a good point of time. What will happen when they're too old is not that they will let bacteria or whatever come through. It's that there just won't be any flow through the filters and kids will just get frustrated because nothing's coming out, right? The UV light system, since we're doing all that filtering up front, I think that will probably last at least a few years. I can find out from the manufacturer. The only thing that would slow that is if there was still something in the water that could cause some kind of deposition on the glass so that the light couldn't come through. But we're doing so much filtering, I don't think that will be an issue.
Thank you. Thanks again.
Ms. McIntyre.
Superintendent Stewart, how many filters have been ordered and what is the estimated time of their arrival? Do we have a sufficient quantity?
Do not have an ETA for their arrival, but in process, we put 2 filters for each hydration station is what's in process.
So there's not, I mean, there's no ETA at all? Like whether it's going to be like a couple of months or a couple of years?
I
or-
don't have that information
Okay.
tonight.
Yeah. Okay.
Ms. Green.
Dr. Sullivan, a quick question about filters again, because those seems like they were a challenge for us. And my concern is going forward, if they become a challenge again, do we have more than one options to get filtered from different manufacturers or different companies?
That's a really good question. I didn't continue looking once I
Okay.
found these,
Okay,
but I looked a while before I found these.
really?
But I can definitely, explore that. Dr. Nancy Love at University of Michigan, who sort of wrote the protocol for all of our testing,
Okay,
she's also looking to find out because other school districts are looking to replicate, to have filters with these same three kinds of barriers. And so I think that if there isn't another company making them now, there will be.
okay.
This is a big issue for schools, and the drinking fountain is sort of a standard size, right? And so having the need for a filter that's that size is going to be only growing.
Okay, okay, thank you.
Thank you. Is that it? Laura?
So yeah, and thank you, Dr. Sullivan. I've thanked you before, and I know how much you and Laura Ammerman have blood, sweat, and tears. And there were a couple of things that struck me that I just want to make sure that the board kind of raises up, so to speak, and that the public hears. Is that the first is that we all know what a tireless warrior you've been in the water crisis, and like the selflessness that you've exhibited to like much personal detriment. But you said kind of offhand that even given your history of what you've been through and having been critically ill for a while and hospitalized for it, that this is water that you would drink. And that kind of just staggers me. That kind of takes my breath away, because we often talk about trust and about would we drink the water. And a lot of us just won't even drink water that we know is still, is okay. But for you to say that's amazing to me. And, I know your personal integrity, and you saying I'll sign off on the drinking fountains. That's, well, I'm not surprised that you would say something like that. The second thing is that this is a system that is unprecedented, that is going to be, when it is installed and when it's in place, when we've got everything going, will be one of, if not the best water filtration system in any school system in the country. And that this could be a model for schools throughout the nation. And that would be a really good thing for not only Flint Community Schools, but for Flint, as a takeaway from this water crisis, which we're still in year 7 with. And so we don't have a lot of victories, very few actually, when it comes to the water crisis, but this seems to me, I can understand why you're so excited and why you look really happy. And I'm glad you're here, and thank you.
It's one of the best in the country because of the components, but the sense of trust that the students in the Flint schools and staff in the Flint schools are entitled to have now, you couldn't get in any other school system. This manufacturer of these units sold them to other school districts that didn't go through testing, that just installed them. I think part of the reason for this school district to decide, no, we think we want to get this testing done is because I said, you can put drinking fountains in if you want, but nobody's going to drink from them if they can't trust it. And I know because of the components here that it's fine, but that doesn't mean anything if I can't show data that supports that. So what we have in Flint now, not only are state-of-the-art drinking fountains, but data that proves that isn't, I didn't have any
Reliable
money to-
data.
Well, right, very good data, but not, skeptical, nothing. Nobody's taking any money on the side to do that test. you can feel confident that it's good data. And so when I say I would drink it, it's not just because these are great components, because I probably wouldn't, because my fear of water has gotten to be substantial. No matter what you use to clear and filter water, I'm not going to drink it unless I can see data. And so it's this data that I saw that made me feel safe to drink this water.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sullivan, for coming to our meeting and all that you have done for our students. Thank you, Dr. Sullivan. Finally, we have Sam Jolly from Vortec joining us this evening to give us an update on the cybersecurity. Sam, please come forward to the microphone. Thank you for joining us this evening.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for having me. Just give me just a moment to get started here. Okay. Out of respect for the board's time, I'm going to proceed a little bit at a fast pace here. Monica is providing the full presentation to you, and I'll make myself available outside of this meeting to answer any additional questions or for any deeper discussions. So this cybersecurity plan that we've put together, we're going after best practices. So the Consortium for School Networking maintains some of these that enterprise level organizations use. We'll go over the leadership, technology, business continuity, and end user education plans. So for leadership here, we work with the school administration and are accountable to the school board, of course. We define and communicate the cybersecurity objectives together. So this is a co-plan here. We coordinate with vendors and any outsourced services to ensure security requirements. This could include the student information system or any learning management systems, anything that could hold or store student data. We communicate with all stakeholders when incidents occur. For example, over the weekend, we had a bit of a network incident that was associated with the fiber splicing for the Flint Northern Fiber Project. So that's an example of the kind of communication that we can provide. We develop, maintain, and improve security audits, penetration testing, and lots of other measures to ensure that everything is working. If there are any holes, we fill them or make plans to do so. For the technology side, we have a perimeter defense. So this is anything that is coming into our network. We have a firewall that is maintained by the GISD. We also have protection installed on each end user device. That's all student and staff devices. We also have content filtering and virus protection in place at multiple levels. So this is on Microsoft and Google side, on our on-premises systems and the network itself. So our local area network, we have backups that are done daily. Those are hosted at the GISD. We also have live monitoring of any intrusions, any phishing attacks, and we have strong and enforced password requirements. So our wide area network, this is what we would consider our internet connection for the most part. Everything is segmented. We have plans with the GISD to enable multi-factor authentication. That's you get texted or emailed a code to sign in for any VPN connections to get access to the network itself. We also have plans in place to upgrade the hardware for our network and upgrade the operating systems for those. The virus protection and all that, that's all included with our Cisco licenses. So that is all handled and taken care of. Endpoint security, this, I kind of breezed through this. This is installed on every end user device. And cloud security as well. So we have what's called a hybrid setup. So we have some information that's stored locally and some that's in the cloud. And all of this is scanned and protected. So business continuity plans, this just goes over if any kind of an incident or problem were to occur, then we have plans in place to make sure that students can continue to learn, staff can continue to work, and there'll be minimal downtime. Physical and environmental safety, this includes having battery backups, power backups for our network. So if there's any kind of brief power outage, the network connection stays up so teachers can keep on teaching. This also includes the actual locking down of network equipment. So making sure they're in a locked closet or a locked rack. So students or anybody that's visiting can't just, unplug stuff or steal the equipment. This is one of the most important parts of our cybersecurity plan. It's the end user awareness and education. We have a program in place through TechGuard for some phishing education. We're working with the curriculum department to get this campaign set up and running. We have the back end all ready to go, and this will begin to occur next month. That is my quick kind of fly through this presentation. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Any questions? Mr. Walker?
I'll be quick. In our last board meeting, I inquired about whether or not we had cybersecurity insurance as a district, and I found out that we did. In your presentation today, you mentioned that you coordinate with vendors to make sure that they're compliant. Do we also require that vendors have cybersecurity insurance as like the general insurance that sometimes they carry generally doesn't cover cyber risks? So how does that work?
Correct. So the district does have cybersecurity insurance.
Sure.
That was put back in place in July. So we would be responsible for anything that happens on our end.
Okay.
We can perform an assessment for all of the different platforms and apps that the district uses and make sure that they comply with cybersecurity standards.
Make sure that the vendors that we.
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
I have a question about.
Yes, ma'am.
Are you guys the one that removed the piece of equipment from Northern High School?
We were a part of that project. That was the GISD managed that project. I helped to provide access along with Superintendent Stewart and CSM, the maintenance company. We're also dealing with Merit. They're the internet service provider, the fiber owner and manager. Also working with Fiber Link, which is a fiber contractor. So there are a lot of moving parts for that project.
Was it mandatory that that piece of equipment goes to GISD? Could it have went somewhere in the district?
Oh, no, ma'am. So there were two main parts of the fiber splice project for Flint Northern. So Flint Northern had been closed since, I believe, 2014. Power outages and vandalism caused outages for two of the Flint schools and two schools that the GISD manages. So there's one network piece of equipment called a fiber switch that is physically removed and no longer needed. I actually have it sitting outside of my office. It's full of soot from fires that were set at Flint Northern. There's another piece of equipment called a fiber mux. It just expands the capacity of the fiber, allows additional buildings to be connected. That was removed from Flint Northern and put and installed in the administration building. So that's still in the district.
Okay, thank you.
You're very welcome.
Any other questions? Ms. Green?
I'm looking at the last page in the handout that we were given, and I think this is some kind of insurance. Is that what this is?
Yes, so that's a summary of the cybersecurity insurance and what it covers, the deductible and the different elements that they would cover.
So is it 2 pages? Because it says 1 of 3.
Right, it's just one. The business office would have the full agreement with the cybersecurity insurance provider. But that was just a summary that was provided.
Okay, from the insurance company?
Yes, ma'am.
So this is something we pay for, or this comes along with what we're paying you guys?
That is separate that the district pays for with the cybersecurity insurance provider.
Okay, so just tell me right quick how much we pay. A lot of different numbers.
I wish I could answer that. I believe the business office might be able to find those numbers for you.
I'm sure they would. So what was on the other 2 pages? That the other 2, the 2 and the 3, just out of curiosity.
I believe they went into detail about the different grading levels of the type of client. There's 1A, 1B, et cetera. And
Okay.
that has to do with the budget of the district or the organization.
Okay.
But I can secure that full agreement for you.
Ooh, these some high deductibles, huh? Ooh, I would like to know more about this insurance. Just, because it piqued my interest because it's, the one of 3 pages. And I know you said you guys would cover anything on your end, but that's for me, because I don't know much about any of this. That's kind of vague for me. So I wonder what we will be responsible for on our end. That's what I want to know. And is it covered in this expensive policy?
Yes, ma'am. I will work with the business office and
Okay.
secure the full agreement for you.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Are there any other questions? Thank you, sir, for coming before us. We appreciate you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. At this time, let me see. I would like to entertain a motion in a second to approve the minutes from July 21 Board Committee of the Whole meeting, July 21, 2021 regular board meeting, and August 4th, 2021 special board meeting, and August 11th, 2021 Board Committee of the Whole.
So move.
Second.
Oh. I didn't know
It
which
has been
time.
properly moved and seconded that we approve the minutes. Are there any corrections? Seeing none, the motion to approve the minutes will be conducted by a roll call vote. As I call your name, please say yes to approve. Ms. Green,
Yes.
Ms. McIntyre,
Yes.
Ms. McNeil,
Yes.
Mr. Walker,
Yes.
and myself is a yes for me. Motion passes 5 yes, 2 absent. Okay, at this time, the board will hear any comments from the public to the items listed on tonight's agenda. Comments about items not appearing on the agenda can be addressed at the end of the meeting. But if you've been waiting a long time and you have a comment, because it's not that many of you, feel free to come up and make your comments or ask your questions at this time. The assistant to the board, Ms. Monica Elston, we ask that you state the reason for addressing the board and that you limit your remarks to 3 minutes on the matters within the jurisdiction of the board and not address individuals by name. The presiding officer of the board shall have the right to limit the number of persons who may address the board on the same subject. Members of the public are reminded that the Board of Education, by its bylaws 1370, is not under obligation to answer questions, make comments, or statements in response to the issues raised by the public in general. Such issues will be referred to the superintendent for individual study or recommendation. Audience members are reminded to state their name and address, and if appropriate, the group they represent. Employees of the board and their representatives of employee organizations and/or unions and students should exhaust administrative procedures before addressing the Board of Education on matters for which administrative review is provided. You are solely responsible for the content of your public statements. Is there anyone present who wishes to address the board? At this time, we have Jamie Foster. Please step forward.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Jamie Foster. I'm your athletic director here at the Flint Community Schools. I thought I had a half hour. No, it's kidding. But anyhow, so look, we're back in school. We have students back. It's a good thing, and the students are here. We've been here for 2 weeks now. Be honest with you, I hardly even notice the heat. The kids have been here every day. They're excited. We have 40 kids out on the football team. They're very young. They're large, they're good. My coaches are extremely happy. We have about 20 kids in other sports that are applying. We have physicals tomorrow at the school. We had physicals last week. We have about 40 kids show up for those physicals. We have physicals next week at the middle school. We have a large number turn out for those programs as well. So it's good to have kids back, and they seem to be very excited to be back. So I want to invite everybody to our first football game, which is next Friday, the 27th. At Houston Stadium. That's at Northwestern, Houston Stadium. The grandstands are in good shape. We had those fixed a couple of years ago. Those are in great shape. We have to do some other things, but we're going to push forward. We're going to push through, and we're going to play our games. We have 3 home games this year. We have the first game is the 27th of August. The second game is I think it's the 2nd of September. And I think it's the week after our second home game, I'm sorry. And our last home game is the 22nd of October. So we're gonna have the field line, and we're gonna be out there. We're gonna play. We have a very competitive schedule. We should be very competitive in this schedule. So I would invite everybody to come out and cheer on our young men and our young ladies as well. We have some young ladies playing football as well. So so we're doing very well. I'm excited about this school year and about this athletic season. It's been a long drought. It's been a year, but we've come back strong. So with that, everybody's welcome to come. Friday, the 27th, the game starts at 7 o'clock. It'll be at Houston Stadium. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Foster. The next speaker we have is Ms. LaToya Jenkins.
Hello,
Good evening.
my name is LaToya, and the reason,
Drop your mic down some. We can't hear you, ma'am. Thank you.
you're welcome. My name is LaToya. How you guys doing today?
Wonderful.
Good. Can you hear me
Yes.
better? Okay. The reason of my concern is I am a parent of a Flint student. I went to the admin building yesterday to apply for a release form to release him from the district. And I was informed that I have to meet one of the criteria in order for my son to be released. Now, granted, even though I live in the district, he has never attended Flint schools. The criteria is, and I took a picture and I'm going to read from my phone what the criteria is. 1, I have to be a parent employed by the Flint School District. 2, a parent provides proof that they are purchasing or leasing a home in the school district, which they are requesting the release for me to move out of this district to the next. And 3rd, the student will have the status as a senior and may remain at his or her home school for their final year of high school. And I noticed that this has not been updated since 2005. So my concern is how or why will my son not be released to this new school district that I'm trying to send him due to one of these criterias, and I do not meet none of them. So is this true? Is this false? How does it go? Are they only releasing certain students and not all the students?
I'm gonna ask the administration because I've never heard of such a thing. Can somebody from the administration speak as to why this lady cannot get her student released from our district so he can be educated? Is this the protocol? Is that the protocol? Pardon me? She said that he has to be a senior, she has to be
No, that was the last.
moving, or she has to be teaching in the district?
I have it right here on my phone.
I heard the other two. I'm just trying to, the first one I didn't hear with the credit.
The first one is a parent is employed by the school district for which they are requesting the release.
Oh, okay.
So I went.
All right, Ms. Jenkins, we're gonna have the assistant superintendent who works with enrollment get in touch with you. We're gonna give him his information, and I've informed them that I am familiar with you, so I know if this doesn't go right, I'll be hearing from you. His name is Mr. Kevlin Jones, and you should be hearing from him, I guess, before the week is out. Before this week is out, we'll try to move forward and get you some help.
Okay,
Thank
sounds
you,
good. I
ma'am.
appreciate you guys. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Morley Settle.
Good evening. My name
Good
is
evening.
Marla Settle. I stay at 19201 Blackberry Creek. I am the attendant agent for Brownell STEM Academy. I'm here today because our children are suffering from the heat. When I say that with all sincerity. Our building is extremely hot. I went around today with paper towels with ice from a freezer to cool the babies off. They were in the hallway, cheeks as red as Mr. Walker's shirt. We had students in the nurse's office with headaches, throwing up, dizziness because of the heat. Fans aren't working. Teachers have their lights off because it's so hot. What if one of our babies have an asthma attack and dies? It's that. I can take it. I can take it. I can come to work every day, but our babies can't. They're miserable. They can't learn. They can't learn. You had them fans on, they making noise, they can't hear the teachers. It is unbearable. 85 degrees tomorrow. It's 77 outside, but it feels like 82. Imagine 85 degrees tomorrow. How hot do you think it's going to be in that building? I would prefer for us to keep them babies out until Labor Day, and we take the loss at the end when he said we're going to have air come December. Because come April, May, we got air. They can make them days up. They can make them up. We can't get a life back if we lose one. We cannot. We have lost 2 children already in the last year at Brownell. We lost one. He had an asthma attack. We have overweight children. They can't take it. The water we giving them, yes, it's bottled water, but it's warm. We can't even give them no cold water. We can't. And they the ones, they're suffering. Like I said, bring a staff to work. We can work. You can have one teacher in the room with fans going, and they do what they got to do. But the babies cannot take it. And my heart is breaking because today I walk around with paper towel with ice in it to cool them off.
So you guys don't have any refrigeration in, I'm just asking.
We have a refrigerator we have 2 refrigerators there, but nobody thinks to put enough water. We don't have enough refrigerator room to put water in there
For every student.
every student to have water throughout the day. I walked around with bottles of cold water in my hand, putting them on their neck just to cool them off. We have a LSS room. He can't open his door because he has a runner. And
Okay.
so his room is hot, his lights are off, but he ain't getting they blowing hot air. It's blowing hot air. And I'm literally like, I go home at night, I'm soaking wet. I can take it. I literally can. But my babies can't. My babies, they can't. And then they plugged in the air and they popping left and right. Circuits popping. We had several teachers come down and say, hey, I just plugged in the air. My circuit popped. We have no power. The babies are suffering. Tomorrow, 85 degrees. But if it's 85 outside, it's 90 in the building. All I'm asking for is for our babies to get some relief. They've been through enough. They have been through enough. Enough. They can't learn. They can't. I can barely concentrate. Thinking about them, I can't sleep at night because I'm trying to figure out what can we do to make it right for these babies. We want them to learn. Our enrollment is down because parents say, I'm not bringing my kids back to school. They're coming back after Labor Day because everybody know here in Michigan, after Labor Day, it's what? It's cool. You can have the windows open. You can have a slight fan going. But August is the hottest month we have. And it's been proven time after time, it's hot. And the babies are the ones, they can't come to school with this. I prefer, like I said, give them the days off. Give the babies the days off. You ain't gotta stop the teachers from coming. Let the babies stay at home because they the ones you get a call, President McIntyre saying, hey, we lost a student at Brownell. They passed out. That's gonna eat at you. That's gonna eat at everybody on this board because we could have did something. Forget the makeup days. I don't care nothing about the makeup days. Make them up in the summertime when they got air. We got air in December, January. We got full air going in every building. Fine. Parents gonna love that anyway. That's less time they gonna have the kids at home in the summer. But right now, I prefer for us to just do whatever we gotta do. Like them calls we make at 6 o'clock in the morning, saying, hey, we ain't got no school because we got 12 feet of snow. Hey, we ain't got no school tomorrow. The building is gonna be too hot. We don't want the babies in there. We don't want nobody. We don't want no ambulance coming to nobody's building because they ain't got no air.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Yes, I also visited Brownell.
Yeah, you were there today. We had to rush the baby out to Merck's.
Yes, I was, and I just want to tell you, you guys did an amazing job. It was like it was orchestrated. I mean, they were like they practiced this like 2-3 times a week. It was just amazing to see them take action, execute, be on point, not miss a beat, and be there for our kids. So kudos to the Brownell team. Miss Dr. Joyce.
We cannot sit here and pretend that we are not in an emergency situation with these kids. I have a granddaughter, and my heart goes out to you. If it get hot in the room and she's down in Atlanta,
Nosebleed.
I'm just gonna have to say no nosebleeds because she has asthma. She started suffocating. And so they hit her, she has 2 she have to take, and they couldn't open the lungs up. And she has another emergency. This is the one that she's at death, and she have to hit it because she's a COVID survivor. She can't be in a humid environment, musty, dusty room. And we sitting up here worrying about if I'm going to ask President to Superintendent Anita, what's the head count of these kids yesterday? Because my understanding is 75, you have to be at 75%. Are we at 75% enrollment as of today? And even if we are, nothing is worse than what this lady is talking about. So we have to make a decision as a board. And we have to stand by this decision. And we will march to Lansing. We will go sit on the porch. We know how to fight. I don't think these kids should be in this hot environment, because they're forcing this district for a head count. Most everybody that works for our administration, their kids in air-conditioned school, their kids don't go to this school, and they could care less. I wouldn't say care less, but that's not passion if you're not living in this district. So I'm asking for suggestion before we even get to the motion. What can we do as a board? Oh, my motion is to be, tomorrow is Thursday. Those kids stay at home. Teacher can report, give them some homework. I'd rather have a penalty than have a death. And we're trying to show this community that we care. That's my motion.
Your motion is to show make the motion again.
Make a motion that school be closed tomorrow because of we failed to get everything ready for them to open. We didn't meet those deadlines for them to be open. And why should they pay for the pandemic? The pandemic did not allow us, the COVID. We couldn't get to what we needed. So I recommend that we close.
Second. Okay, and I'm going to open it up for a discussion because it's been moving properly seconded, because I think first of all, it is hot.
It's hot in here.
And I did definitely try on the front end to get, because I knew this was gonna happen, because it happens every year. But if our buildings are gonna be hot, even if the buildings aren't hot, it's summertime. And we know that our buildings have issues. Somebody from the administration, a teacher, somebody needs to put water in the refrigerator at night and in the freezer. No, well, it probably won't be enough for everybody. We might even have to get some freezers. We cannot, I agree with Dr. Joyce. We can't keep subjecting people to this type of treatment. I mean, because I'm gonna be honest, I'm an adult, and if I was at work and it was hot like that, I'd be ready to call the health department and call my committee man and call my committee man's boss and his committee man and be ready to tear up Jack. We're talking about FMLA, sick leave, thinking about how I can run a scam not to come to work. So I think we do have to consider something, and she's right. If we have to make up some days, because that is a liability. We got plenty money, but we haven't fixed our issues and our kids are suffering.
Superintendent,
We got to do something.
do we have some type of heat index code here, something that we could use, go by? A heat index code? You know, when it gets so hot, can we use that code to validate that we need to close tomorrow? I think we did that before once.
Yes, ma'am. And that's what I used last Thursday when we closed schools.
So we're gonna use, can we use it again for tomorrow?
What is
Okay,
that?
wait, maybe I misunderstood you. Did you say a heat index code for attendance?
Yeah.
Oh, no, ma'am. We don't have a heat index code for attendance. I'm sorry. I misunderstood you.
So what type of, when it's hot like this, what type of code, do you need a code?
No, school is just canceled.
Mr. Walker?
If I can, I'll just again reiterate, because being at homes, being at Brownell today and experiencing, again, I was there right after one, unbearable is the word that I would use. And then again, understanding last Thursday, we closed down, I believe, and looking at the temperature, it was around 84. Tomorrow was supposed to be around 88. Again, we have to do what's in the best interest. And it's my hope that, again, with Johnson Controls, we can do whatever within our powers to, again, I know December is the deadline that was mentioned, but hopefully whatever we can do to expedite that, given the supply shortage, will happen, because again, airflow, especially during the pandemic, is of the utmost importance. There's no way that you can be in that space with this mask on and, breathe. In general, I was in the office today, the window was open, I had my mask on, and it was just unbearable. So I can only imagine
Right.
learning like that in that condition. So
Um,
given that, that's all I'm saying.
Ma'am,
Yes, ma'am. President McIntosh, it is next week. It is going to be 85 degrees Monday through Thursday. Monday through Thursday, it's going to be 85 degrees all next week. It's my grandsons, like yours, have asthma. I've seen my grandson have an asthma attack,
yeah.
and it sent me into a whirlwind because to see him not be able to breathe as a child, that shook me. And walking through Brownell today, I came back to Brownell because that's where my heart is. My heart is there, and I can't seem to pull myself away no matter how I try. I can't go nowhere. My heart is there. Those are my babies. I call parents every day. Today we had an open house, and they came up in the school and they was like, "Oh my goodness, it is so hot in here." I'm saying, this is what your baby's sitting in every day because it's August, it's hot. We gotta do something. Like I said, I'd rather us make up these days next year because the man from Johnson Control, he said we're gonna have air. We're gonna have air. Make them up. Whatever we gotta do, because I don't want to have to say we need a paramedics to
Right.
run in.
Yeah, we're gonna work on something, ma'am. Go ahead, Dr. Joyce.
Madam President, this is to the superintendent. Just asking a question. Intersection days, we have like a week. Is there no way we could, use that intersection another way to deal with this heat situation? Or I remember back in the days when the room got to a certain temperature, especially when we was at Door Rider before they got air, and I worked there, and I used to have to go out inside and teach classes. But when it got to a certain temperature in that room, they just dismissed the school. So what is your intake as the superintendent? What should we do? We're talking about intersection, and I don't even know why I brought that up, but could we utilize that some kind of other way?
You can use intercessions to make up days. However, we still would need to go back to all of the bargaining units and discuss it with all 3 bargaining units because for each bargaining unit, they only have X number of contractual days that they work a year, and their calendar is already set for this particular school year. What do I mean by their calendar is already set? So for example, of the 3 bargaining units, we have a September intercession that's coming up. And I believe all 3 bargaining units are off based upon their calendar for the September intercession. So we would have to go back to all 3 bargaining units and discuss their calendar with them.
So do this board need to make a motion to set a heat index policy or procedure? Or in other words, we can make a motion to say, when a classroom get to 80 some degrees, send the kids home, or could we have that we can, as a board, can set our own policy that due to, we're in the midst of a pandemic and everything else, the third 3 virus out there. So we as a board can make a motion and say that, hey, when a room gets, I don't know, depending on the school, 80 is hot, maybe the teacher can tell, because I'm not sitting in there every day, what is the heat index for that particular school?
I'll just say, it's interesting because the teacher did have that index today. I want to say she showed me something in her room was like 83.6. But I want to follow up on what you asked because I wonder, Superintendent, is there a case to be made to MDE to request waiver days? And I don't know again, but I wonder, have we explored that given the heat in the school and the mask? Is this a case to be made for waiver days with MDE? So we don't have to, look at maybe other avenues that we have to explore. Is that something potentially we can have a conversation with MDE about?
That's something potentially that we could have a conversation with MDE about. I have 2 things, one that Board Member McNeil lifted earlier, and then one that you just lifted a minute ago as 2 conversations to have with MDE to see what we can do. And I'll bring that information back to the 2 of you as to what MDE says.
As of tomorrow, then we're making a motion that our scholars do not have to sit in that classroom tomorrow. And this board is willing to take the heat. Our kids and our community is our top concern. I'll make a motion that Flint Community School not be open tomorrow. Or it's just that particular, okay.
Okay, is there any more further discussion? Mr. Walker, I saw you with your hand up.
No, I'm good. I'm good.
Okay, Ms. McIntyre, Ms. Green?
I'm catching a headache.
Okay. It has been moved, properly seconded. There's no more discussion if you're in favor of schools being closed. I'd like to make an amendment to the motion. And the amendment to the motion is that on top of closing schools tomorrow, the administration gets in touch with the bargaining units, all bargaining units tomorrow, speak to them about next week, 85 all day, see what they're willing. We've got to work with one another. This is terrible. So that's what, so that's, the motion is made, the amendment. So I'm gonna ask, we had a motion and a second. Did we have a motion and a second on her motion? Okay, and
I
we.
need a second on your amendment.
Okay, so,
Second.
okay, well, we gotta vote on the motion first, then the amendment, right?
You've amended it, so you can take one big.
Vote, okay.
You
So,
tightened the original closure.
okay, so what we'll do is, at this time, we're gonna take a vote. If you're for, say aye. If you're against, nay. All in favor, say aye. Those opposed, say nay. The ayes have it. 5 yes, 2 absent.
We want to make an announcement that the school will be closed tomorrow.
Tomorrow, school will be closed. And we're looking into what we're gonna be able to do about next week, ma'am. That's okay. Right. Next, we have Mr. Arthur Woodson for public comments. I'm sorry, Art. We almost forgot about you, sir.
I'm highly upset. Listen, I'm gonna try to be as nice as possible, and that's gonna be real hard. In a public position, you're gonna have people who disagree with you. You have people that agree with you at times. You can't get upset being in a public position. If you do, you need to step to the side. If you want to be vindictive because somebody disagreed with you and did something, you need to step to the side. I understand why our kids are acting a fool in the streets, in the schools. Our leadership here in the city of Flint, attitude reflects leadership. Our leadership suck here in the city of Flint. We sell each other out for positions. We sell each other out for money. We sell each other out just to be on TV, on the news for 5 minutes. Let's think big. We have over $100 million here in the school district. Why are we throwing $3-4 million into old ran down schools that we haven't had a new school since 1976? Why won't we take that $3-4 million and build 2 new schools with MOT or without MOT? Next week, say, hey, you know what? We getting ready to build 2 new schools. We have over $100 million. All it takes is $25 million for a brand new school. 2 elementary schools because the money is in K through 6. So we need to build 2 new schools and bring back those right there. And then we start generating money, pupils, customers, self-sufficiency. Then we start building more schools. Once those schools get packed, it's not that difficult. What I'm tired of, Johnson, whatever, controls. I've been hearing that name since 2019. Yeah, I'm talking about you, my man. I've been hearing that name. Why didn't we take that air conditioner that we put on the administration building and put it on the school instead of administration sacrifice for our kids? It doesn't take that much because I put an air conditioner in my house. First thing we knew, we had to change the box because the house was too old, the circuit breaker. It doesn't take that much, man, to change the wiring in the school because y'all knew that these circuit breakers was bad anyway for years. We should be able to use a portable air conditioner in Brownell. This is sad. Our kids shouldn't have to suffer like they're suffering. And this is really sad. I mean, good Lord, man. Let's quit selling each other out for a position, for a couple of dollars, for 5 minutes of fame on TV. I'm tired of certain individuals running Flint, like Chamber of Commerce, MOT, Uptown Development. These people are running Flint because our leadership want $1,500 in campaign contributions, or they want to be the director of the foundations once they leave their position that they have right now. But you will sell the city of Flint out just for your own self-preservation, self-centered, or self-interest. Let's stop doing that. Let's talk about next week building 2 new schools. Let's bring that MOU. Let's bring that strategic plan. Let's bring all that to the floor next week and start talking about building new schools. We don't need MOT. We need MOT, whatever it is. We can build them by ourselves. We got $50 million. Let's build the new schools. Let's say, hey, you know what? September, we're getting ready to build new schools. Watch how people start saying, I'm coming back to Flint with these new schools. That's all we got to do. And we won't have to worry about our babies sitting up in these hot rooms, not having water to drink. We won't have to worry about that. Thank you.
Now we will receive the superintendent's communique from Ms. Stewart.
Good evening. The 2021-22 school year is off to a strong start. The theme for this school year is Back in Stride Again, inspired by the song by Maze and Frankie Beverly. We are back in action again. We're going to give it all we can. We remain dedicated to our scholars, providing them with the education and skills they need for lifelong success. We welcomed our families on August 4th for the first day of school, which was a half day. The excitement and the energy of the first day of school was electrifying. It was great to hear the laughter and conversation in every hallway and classroom. The magic of the first day of school never wears off, and we look forward to making this year one of the best in the books. We could not do this without a strong team of leaders. Thus, we are excited to announce 3 new positions for the 21-22 school year, including a new principal at Doyle Ryder Elementary, as well as a continuous improvement director and K-3 literacy and numeracy supervisor for the district. Dr. Natoya Coleman will join Doyle Ryder this year as the principal. After serving as assistant principal at Southwestern Classical Academy, Dr. Coleman is very excited to continue working with the Flint community and hopes to create safe and engaging instructional environments for Flint Community School scholars. Dr. Coleman received her Bachelor's of Arts degree in English Language Arts and Literature and a Master's in Secondary Education from the University of Michigan, Ann Arbor. She also holds a PhD in education. She has a wealth of experience in curriculum and instruction and school management and strives to uplift the community through her work as an educator. Shalonda Bias will continue working with FCS as the Continuous Improvement Director. Though still principal at Brownell STEM Academy, Bias will transition into her new role once her current position is filled. As Continuous Improvement Director, Principal Bias will provide direct support services to our 2 schools with whom qualified us for the partnership agreement, as well as the other 9 buildings. She will monitor district accountability by coordinating state and district-wide assessments, as well as analyzing student data for schools and district leaders to help impact the 3 identified benchmarks in the partnership agreement: academics, attendance, and behavior. FCS is also introducing the post of K-3 literacy and numeracy supervisor, which was vacated by a retirement. This position will be filled by Latasha Wilson. Ms. Wilson currently works as the early childhood coordinator and is thrilled to continue her work with FCS. In her new role, Wilson will perform a variety of administrative tasks, coordinating the successful early literacy and numeracy programming for students in preschool through 3rd grade. She will assist teachers with developing strategies and techniques for assessing and addressing the literacy and numeracy deficiencies of young Flint Community School scholars. Please join us in congratulating these women on their new positions. We are very grateful for their hard work and dedication to Flint Community School scholars and families. This year, Flint Community Schools is excited to welcome back students for both in-person and virtual learning. The virtual learning option uses GenNet online learning portal for families whose scholars are not yet ready to return to in-person instruction. Eligible scholars will participate in asynchronous learning with courses and teachers provided by Lincoln Learning and Edgenuity. All course teachers are certified subject area content experts. With virtual learning, the teacher will grade student assessments and provide detailed feedback. The course teacher is available to answer student questions via email, during scheduled office hours, or by virtual appointment. Please be advised that this option does not include daily live instruction for families. Virtual learning will be self-paced, with our scholars having access to their teachers for support. The district hosted an orientation meeting last night at Southwestern to discuss the options further with families. We remain dedicated to our scholars, providing them with the education and skills they need for success. The district's Return to Learn and Recovery Plan continues to be underway. Masks are required for everyone who enters our buildings, and we will continue to practice social distancing. These measures help protect our entire school community, and we will continue to evaluate these protocols based on recommendations from both state and local health agencies. We understand our families are seeking support as they transition back to school. Our wellness team is prioritizing the social and emotional wellness of scholars this year, offering restorative practices to ease the effects of trauma and ensure our scholars' success. Our goal is to meet our children where they are, providing a safe space for their voices to be heard and engaging with our local community. Learning during a pandemic can be challenging, and trauma can isolate scholars, but we must gather as a community to address the factors that prevent our scholars from learning. We are working together to address learning barriers. Our staff will receive intentional training on restorative practices, and we have time scheduled with National Institute of Trauma to learn about the 5 core competencies of social emotional learning. Licensed clinicians and community health workers are in every school building, and we will continue to empower our families to receive the support they may need. Creating engaging opportunities to keep our families connected is a top priority. Every school is also hosting an open house for families this August to welcome our families and review important information. We continue to encourage enrollment with FCS. We developed a 30-second promotional video, which has been shared on our Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook pages. We encourage you to share it on your social media as well and with your friends and neighbors. We are also hosting a pre-kindergarten enrollment event on August 27th from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. at Homestead Middle School Academy. There will be free books and treats for scholars. FCS offers full-day early learning opportunities for children turning 4 years old on or before September 1st with Great Start Readiness programs, GSRP, at 8 FCS locations. For more information, please encourage families to call 810-767-8018 or visit www.flintschools.org. Thank you to everyone, our families, teachers, staff, and you, the Board of Education, for making the first weeks of school a triumph. We look forward to experiencing the rest of the 21-22 school year alongside of you. Thank you.
Thank you. I will now call upon Ms. Rubin to present the Human Resources Committee action items to the board.
Please allow me to stand. I've been sitting a little long. I seek a motion and a second to approve action item 1.4, personnel recommendations.
Second.
How many personnel recommendations? Let me get to this. 20. This is for 3 positions?
Three teaching positions, and then 6 resignations, 1 recession. And I have an update. Mo, can you help me, please? During the last call, there were comments about the
Okay.
rationale behind the resignations. And so I took the liberty to go and review each one of the resignations just to get some insight on the forms that they fill out. And I provided some additional information about the resignations. And moving forward, this level of detail will be provided with the resignations.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
So just to give you some insight, you know, when they fill out their resignation form, the type of information that they state, the reason why they're leaving our district. So I will start keeping tabs on that information for further board information.
Is there any other questions? Go ahead, Ms. Laura.
Thank you. I appreciate you doing that in such a timely way. When I asked a question, it was about doing exit interviews.
Yes.
So in addition to filling out this question?
They may not do, an exit interview, as you know, is optional. I do ask, I do stress that it's optional, and I do provide the exit interview. More often, I do not get a response, but I will get an official resignation form where they just merely check a box. So those are the responses of some checked boxes.
Okay, I was just trying to clarify that this isn't the exit interview. This is the
No,
checked box.
that is the check
Okay,
box.
thank you so much.
Teachers generally don't do exit interviews.
Yeah,
But
I know.
our professional staff, I ask them. I do ask everybody, and I will be providing you with a copy of an exit interview.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Seeing there is none, the vote is on the floor to accept the personnel recommendations. As I call your name, we'll know we're gonna aye or yay, aye to accept or nay to oppose. All in favor of the motion, say aye. Those opposed, say nay. The ayes have it, 5 yes, 2 absent. Next.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. In your packet are information reports. 12.6 check registry for July 31st, 2021, pages 25 through 62. 12.7 balance sheet for the July 31st, 2021. Pay is on page 63, and 12.8 budget versus actuals for July 31st, 2021 is on page 64. And 12.9 EDEP monthly report, July 31st, 2021 is on page 65. Does any of the board members have any questions as it pertains to these pieces? Go ahead, Ms. McIntyre.
So I had a couple of clarifying questions. Thank you for providing this. This is a lot easier to read than previous. In terms of the AT&T invoices, is this like a month? How is the AT&T billed? Is it per month? Because I see like different dates and things like that.
So the different AT&Ts are on different cycles. So some of them have a different cutoff days. And so it is a month worth of activity for the cycle for that particular service.
And I can't remember if we asked this and got an answer, but are these phones that are in office phones, or are we paying for cell phones?
We pay for office phones, cell phones. We also pay for hotspots.
Okay. And who is authorized to have the cell phones?
They're generally principals and administrators, but not all administrators have a phone.
And so we have line items for Sprint as well. And how is that different than AT&T? Is that like a different phone service, or is it just?
The Sprints are mainly hotspots.
Okay. So both Sprint and AT&T provide hotspots?
Yes.
Thank you. Appreciate your patience. There's quite a few pages. I apologize. I've made notes.
Okay, while she's flipping, do anybody else have any questions?
So on page, I believe it's 38, under really good stuff. Can you provide more information about what kind of supplies those are?
I don't have the details right here to tell you that, but if you would like, I can pull up the actual check and all the supporting detail for it and give it to you. I don't have it right here. I don't know all the details for all the items that are on the check register.
Yeah, I just wondered because some of the descriptions are more specific than just supplies, like it says more. And so I just wondered why that one just says supplies and it is over $5,000.
So 35A is our early literacy. So I can give you the details of the check. If you would like, I can ensure you have all the details that go with it.
Sure, and you can, I mean, we don't have to do it right now, obviously, but if you could provide that information outside of this meeting, please. Then on page 41, this was sort of like a question, not necessarily that you would have an answer for, but also that I would like to bring it to the attention of the board. It's a very minimal amount. It's only for $517.50, but it is to the Sloan Museum. And I'm wondering why, if under one of the previous millages, the City of Flint residents and taxpayers voted to approve a millage with the understanding that we would have free access to our museums and to our cultural center amenities. And yes, $517 is negligible, but I am kind of surprised that our school district would be even, I mean, I'm kind of wondering, is this, what is that cost for? Why are we even paying out of pocket for something associated with Sloan Museum? Is it for services? Is it for materials? I mean, maybe we purchased something from them, but just as a matter of principle, I just kind of wondered.
So this is another item that I can give you the details of the check. So I just want to be clear to you that there's no way that I know the details for every check that's in his packet. So if you have something specific you have questions about, I can give you the details behind the check.
Yeah, and like I said, I prefaced it by saying you probably didn't have the answer, wouldn't know, and it's not necessarily towards you, but it's also something that I just wanted to raise up because I know that we're talking about community partners and going forward with coalition building in good faith, and I would really kind of want some answers to this. And like I said, it's a very negligible amount, but I would like to make sure that we have enthusiastic community partners. So on that note, on page 46, we do have an amount, and this is hard to read, I believe for $100,000, over $100,000 to the Crim Fitness Foundation. It says purchases for services, Title I. So with all that we're talking about with the Crim Fitness Foundation, how do these payments, is this something that I mean, obviously we're paying it out of Title I, but it's over $100,000. So I'm, this is purely my ignorance. I understand that, but from what Mr. White was saying and some other information that we were given, that the Crim Fitness Foundation was providing services, or, we were in danger of getting services pulled, and yet we're paying $100,000, over $100,000 for this. So is there some kind of explanation about why we're paying out money to the Crim Fitness Foundation?
So we still had our obligation to the Crim Fitness in the contract that you all approved for us to have services from the Crim, and our obligation is $300,000.
$300,000 out of, do you know what the total bill is?
The total bill is over $4 million.
4 million, and then we pay $300,000, and this is a $100,000 payment?
I'm actually making a guess at exactly
Yeah.
what this is, but we do have an obligation to pay Crim $300,000.
Yeah, and then, like I said, forgive my ignorance. I'm just trying to figure, wrap my head around this. Okay. I asked that question. And then on page 50, we have another charge from the Williams firm for a little under $40,000. Is that their final invoice, or can you tell me the date of that invoice? It's hard to.
It says the legal services are from May 1st through May 31st, under the description at the
Okay.
bottom of the page.
I don't have that.
It's when you undo the fold, it's at the bottom where you see the amount for $39,437. If you come back across, it says 5/1 through 31 legal services.
5/1/31. So that
Yeah,
that
that's
means
May
that
1st
it's May 1st.
to May 31st.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. And then on page 52. Sentinel Technologies. It says wireless access, and the description says CS Mott Remote Learning Tech. 52.
So again, you want me to give you the details for that? I can.
Yeah, please. I'm just wondering what a description, CS Mott Remote Learning Tech, I don't know what that means. So thank you for putting that on your list. Not much further. In fact, I don't think, well, wait a sec. Page 60, the Plant Moran Cressa invoice for $44,000 for professional services. Baird, is that a standing charge that we pay, or what?
So for Plant Moran Cressa, we had to pay them up front, and then the state will pay us back for the services. That's what that is.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And is that the same for page 62 with that charge for Plant Moran Cressa? Is that something the state will pay us back for? That's just the next page, yeah.
Yes, they're going to pay us a total of $48,000.
Thank you. I really appreciate you taking the time and the patience. That's all I have. Thank you.
Are there any other questions? I did have a question because, and I don't know how true this is, Ms. Domprey, but I've received some calls from people stating that some people that may not have been in the district for a year have possibly gotten bonuses. Is it we need to check that out, because if they haven't been here a year, they should not be getting a bonus. So can we track that down and find, because if they got a bonus and they haven't been here a year, they got to get that back.
Okay.
So the question is it any way you can check that out for us?
Yes.
after I'm done with my questions. Thank you. I want to speak about that, speak to that piece.
Sorry.
See, I'm thrown out. It don't take much to shake me up, especially hot as it is, honey. Okay, go ahead, Miss Laura, let me think.
Trustee.
Oh, so make the motion? I would like to make the motion that we are provided with a list of everyone who has received that bonus thus far. That we have a list of who's received the payout thus far. And can we have a deadline, maybe a date?
Well, the first thing, to amend your motion to make it work for you, so you won't have to keep getting a piece here, a piece. If you're gonna make a motion that you get everybody who's received the payment, you need to get their higher end date too.
You need to start.
You should get their high, if we're gonna have a motion to get everybody who received the payment, then we should get their higher end date so we can find out, or know, because just knowing everybody who got it.
That's an excellent. So if we can get a list of everyone who's received.
Is she gonna make the motion?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, I appreciate, that's a really good point. If we can have the date of hire, who received the bonus. And in addition to that, I would like a checklist if they meet all of the criteria for qualifying for the bonus. I would like to make sure that they would go through all of the criteria and make sure everyone who has been issued the bonus qualifies for it, not just with the date of hire, please.
Are you making a motion?
I am making a motion.
Second. It has been moved, I can't second it because I'm chairing the meeting, because nobody else, I could, but I probably shouldn't. Nobody else will second it? Okay, so it has been moved and properly seconded that we get the information that Ms. Laura McIntyre requested as to who received the bonuses, their higher end date, and the criteria to receive the bonus. Is there any further discussion? Seeing there is none, if you are in support of the motion, signify by saying aye. All that oppose say nay.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, the motion has been passed. Next, we are moving.
Excuse me,
Our-
President McIntosh,
Yes,
is there
ma'am.
some way we can get a date maybe, or a deadline? Because,
That should be easy.
yeah, and because we do have a lot of motions that have been made,
we
going
say
through the
Monday?
minutes and that have been made that just haven't happened. And I'd like to see this happen in a timely way and not put off indefinitely, like some of the other motions that we've made.
Well, how soon will we be able to get that information? I don't know. How long do you think you guys will need?
That's something simple. You just go into your database and just print it out.
I
It's not like you
understand.
got to
Did
do
it right.
research. It's just
So,
simple.
yeah,
We can
maybe by
I would
close
like
of-
to have it by Monday. Keep in mind, we got Labor Day coming up and we got some issues that we have to get done.
Right, I would
Monday is
actually
fine.
like close of business by this
Any day,
Friday,
Monday.
because we
Okay,
have.
I'm sorry,
Well,
we're trying
I
to
don't-
process payroll. We
Yeah,
have things
yeah.
we're trying to do, so
This is just a
Friday is
database.
unrealistic. No, because you also asked to give you a list of the criteria and that they meet the criteria and their hire dates, and that is not the information that we have on what we supply to payroll. So we have to gather that information. And so we have some things that we need to take care of. And today being Wednesday, after 10 p.m., I can't promise that it'll be done Friday. Can we at least get a week?
I think a week is too long because we got other deadlines that we got to make. It would, to me, if we just use the guideline that is handed down by federal government, how ESSA fund is supposed to be used, we won't need nothing else extra. All we need is the people you sent, hire date, and that's it. We don't need the criteria because it's in the federal guideline what
I
the
mean,
criteria.
yeah, honestly, this is some information we
She-
should already have.
She got a job to do, y'all. She gonna get us the information. I think a week to give her a chance to gather. And she's working on it, and you can expect her to do her job too.
Yeah.
And this is on the fly, and she does have responsibilities that I expect her to meet. All the rest of, we want the check registry still on time. We want people to get their checks still on time. So I think it's reasonable to give us a week if Ms. Prey, along with your team. Go ahead, Ms.
Since we're
Mia.
talking about Esteban, what was the guy named Kevin Walt, that could not make it? And he sent a PowerPoint presentation. That is not what we wanted, because that is not what we're looking for. I can read a PowerPoint. Is this in a way that we can, how are we talking about this? Is to get him to come back and sit with the board. So whatever we're trying to understand, it appears that he's the only person who had the answer.
Who is, I don't.
Well, it was, he's at MDE, I believe. Kevin Walters or Walter, what is his name?
So if, board members, if you recall, Mr. Walters was available to come, but his boss
Yeah,
wanted
I
to
got the
come
reason. I'm
with
asking him to
deputy-
come. Can he come now? And that's why he didn't come before. I'm saying, can
Can
we
I
get?
finish my statement,
No, you
please?
need to hear what I'm saying, because it's hot in here. I'm just saying, can he,
Okay.
we make a motion for him to come in here? And it has nothing to do with what he couldn't come last time, since we're talking about Estefan. Call him up. I give me a number.
He's
We'll
scheduled
call
to
him up.
come, isn't
Yes,
he? He's
he
scheduled
is.
to come, Ms.
Huh?
But
He's scheduled.
I
If
didn't.
you let me finish my statement,
Well, if you
I'm
have
not
let me finish.
disrespecting you. Please don't disrespect me.
I'm not disrespecting. Just don't start that whining now. Today it's hot. Don't start that. I didn't disrespect you.
Order for everybody. Order for everybody. Nah. Okay, well, I do know for a fact that he is scheduled to come. Is it the 25th?
So his boss, the deputy superintendent, wants to come with him, and his boss is trying to get it scheduled on his calendar so that he can come with Kevin. And so as soon as we get a date from the deputy superintendent of when he can come, we'll share that information with the board. But he has stated Kevin cannot come alone. He has to come with him.
Okay, so his boss done stated he can't come without him, so we have to respect that. Okay, Ms. Pray, go ahead.
that's what I was gonna state. I asked them to see if they're available for the September 8th POW meeting. So I'm waiting to see if his boss is available as well. So I already sent the email out yesterday asking for him if he could come on the 8th.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Can I make a request? It's that we lift up the fact that we didn't ask for a PowerPoint presentation, that we asked for him to come, we asked for him to come before the board so that we could ask direct questions and have direct answers. So I'm not really interested, and I don't know about what the pleasure is of the rest of the board, but I don't want a presentation. I want some answers.
Well, that's what the next meeting for. That's what we just said. We didn't want the PowerPoint. He's gonna come.
I just
on the
wanted to lift
8th,
that
and
up.
you know, and we need to hurry up because it's hot in
Right,
here.
it is.
All this here.
Order. Go ahead, Ms. Pray.
So Mr. Walters asked for you all to provide your questions in advance so he can be prepared for when you
No.
come.
Okay, so
No.
we need to write down whatever our questions are. No, don't write no questions
We'll
down.
have him when
No.
he come.
He can come and answer some questions. That's
Well,
what
he
his
can
job
answer
is.
some questions, but if you have your question in advance and you want to answer, write it down. We'll ask him some stuff on the fly too. But it would probably be better if you know your question to ask it up front so he can be prepared to answer it.
If I get a chance, I will.
Okay, well, suit yourself. Is there any other questions? All right, seeing there's no further discussion, look, what is we on? Miss Rubin, Miss Pray up here. Oh, here we go on this page. Let's see, motion to say. Okay, I will now call upon Ms. Stewart to present the board committee of the whole action items to the board.
I seek a motion and a second to approve action item 21.2, membership in the Michigan High School Association 2021-2022.
Second.
It has been moved and properly seconded. Is there any discussion?
There is, just really.
Yes, go ahead, Mr. Walker.
Ms. Stewart, we don't have to get into it now, but in our academic subcommittee meeting, there was Assistant Superintendent Jones mentioned a meeting tomorrow with the ISD to talk about like the different, I don't know if it's like different conferences or whatever, but we'd love to know. It seemed like it's in relation to sports and us and what that means for us. So we just like more information. I know you all provide it, but would just like more insight once that meeting happens, because we had a few bits of discussion about that in our meeting.
So just point of clarity,
Mhm.
it's not with the ISD.
Okay.
It's with Genesee Area Conference. We have been
Okay.
trying to get into that conference for the past couple of years.
Okay.
And we've been invited by the conference to attend that meeting so that they can determine whether or not they're going to let Flint Community Schools in the conference.
Thank you. Thank you.
But I will give you an update. Yes, sir.
Is there any further discussion? Any more questions? Yes, ma'am.
We know why we haven't been allowed or been let in, or what's wrong? I mean, you know what I'm saying? What's going on? Why is this tough?
Mr. Foster just left.
Show
Which,
did. Okay, I don't know Mr. Foster, 'cause
Yes.
wow.
Yeah, that would have been. Yeah, that would have been a great question to ask him. And I know there's been some things going on prior to me that I'm not aware of, and I don't want to misspeak.
Dr. Joyce, is your hand up? Okay, no further questions. Okay, seeing there is no further questions, have this been moved and properly seconded? Okay, it has been moved and properly seconded. There is no further discussion. At this time, we'll take a roll call vote. No, we won't. We're gonna aye or nay it. Those that are in favor, aye. Those opposed, nay. Aye. Okay, the ayes have it. Motion passes 5-0.
I seek a motion in a second to approve action item 21.4, gifts and donations.
Any discussion? The motion has been made and properly seconded. At this time, we're going to signify by saying aye to accept or nay to discussion.
Discussion. Yeah, before I talked about some way of commemorating that or making some kind of a thing. And so I would just, it looks like there's additional information about following through with that, about ordering a plaque or doing something like that. And I made the motion earlier, right, for us to do something, so.
You did in the last meeting. You did in the last meeting.
Yeah, okay, all right, so I just wanted to just make sure about that, so thank you.
Okay, did we aye that to accept that? Did we say aye? Okay, so we're moving right along. Please continue, Ms. Stewart. Oh, okay, I thought you had, I can't keep up. That's okay, so at this time, we're gonna aye to accept or nay not to accept. Those who are in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it, motion passes. 5 yes, 2 absent. Please continue, Ms. Stewart.
These are academic items. I just go right into, okay. I seek a motion in a second to approve action item 25.3, recognition of Constitution Day and Hispanic Heritage Month.
Second. It has been moved and properly seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing there is no discussion, those in favor signify by saying aye. Those opposed signify by saying nay. Aye. Okay, the ayes have it. 5 yes and 2 absent.
I seek a motion in a second to approve action item 25.4, authorization to renew NWEA assessment system licenses.
Support.
It has been moved and properly seconded. Is there any discussion? Exactly what is this, Ms. Stewart? NWA, because we didn't discuss this, but I can't think of what it is.
This was the one for the benchmark assessments 3 times a year, beginning of the year, middle of the year, and end of the year, that we give our scholars. And it has, Board Member McIntyre had a question on this particular piece. Did you get the answer to your question?
I did, thank you.
Okay, yeah, last week.
Okay. I do remember us discussing, but I just don't remember the details, but I guess I should have read in depth my board packet.
No, it's okay. I was just saying that to kind of trigger that
No,
we
but I,
discussed it
yeah,
last.
and I remember
You remember?
NWE, but like I said, I'm blank. This has been a
Okay.
rough week. Okay, so is there any further discussion? Seeing that,
There was.
Go ahead.
Just to raise up from the academic subcommittee meeting, Assistant Superintendent Jones had indicated, remember there was a question about the science piece and that there was a mistake. And I know we all got the the email or the memo. And so then that was resolved. And so the reading and math was a separate line item from the science add-on. So it wasn't like science was being paid for twice. So that was, yeah. So thank you very much for doing the due diligence with that.
Did that trigger your memory for President?
I remember,
Okay,
it's getting late.
okay. Did you guys vote yet?
Did we vote on that? Did we say yes or no? Okay, no, we was, Laura discussing it.
I'm done. I just wanted to make that comment. So
Okay,
thank you.
is there any further discussion? Okay, at this time, we're gonna take a vote. Those in favor signify by saying aye. Those opposed say nay. Aye. The ayes have it, 5 yes, 2 absent. Moving right along.
I seek a motion and a second to approve action item 25.5, list of approved courses.
Second.
It has been moved and properly seconded. Is there any questions? Seeing there's no questions, we will take a vote. Signify by saying aye if you are in support, nay if you do not support. Aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes 5 yes, 5 ayes, 2 absent. Moving right along. Okay, oh, that's it. Okay.
Now we got one more. One more.
I'm missing a page. What happened? Did I skip something? Oh, okay.
I seek a motion and a second to
Ah.
approve action item 25.7, authorization to purchase approved items from Michigan Department of Health and Human Services Nurses Carryover Grant FY21.
It's been moved and properly seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing there's none, those in favor say aye, those opposed say nay.
Aye.
Aye. Ayes have it, 2 absent, 5 ayes. Motion passes. Okay, at this time, we are going to address Ms. Laura's complaint by Ms. Dunpray. We did follow up with legal, Ms. Dunpray. Did all the board members receive the complaint? Oh, I'm sorry. All the board members did not receive the complaint?
If I did, it must have missed my email. I don't know if I did.
Okay, well, I'll send it back out to you, but, just so Ms. Dunpray knows, I did read over her complaint, and I did address her complaint before she even filled her complaint out immediately. Her complaint was against, Board Member McIntyre. My solution to that, because it was a hostile work environment for Ms. Dunpray stated that she did not feel comfortable. She felt threatened. The situation was getting hostile, and she wasn't quite sure how to handle the situation. So, to come up with a solution where Ms. Dunpray can come to work and do her job and still get the information to the board. As the president, I determined that Ms. Laura McIntyre will write her questions down, give them to Mo. Mo would submit those questions to Ms. Dunpray. Ms. Dunpray would answer them accordingly. Any questions Ms. Dunpray had, she returned them to Mo. Mo would give them back to Ms. Laura, and that would be the way that they would communicate to keep any hostility, any opportunities for gaslighting situations, and to defuse the situation, to address the issue as a district legally, so that we would not be at any liable situations. Also, so that Ms. Dunpray can feel comfortable doing her job, know that she is protected, even though we are the board. We want them to be protected, and we want everybody else to be protected as it pertains to the administration. Nobody should have to come to work feeling threatened. Ms. Anita Stewart also complained against Ms. Laura McIntyre, stating that it was a hostile situation and that she didn't feel respected. I did give her permission. At that time, we were on Zoom. I gave her permission to end the Zoom meetings if necessary, if she felt like it was going left and she could not maintain her professionalism. That was my solution to it, because we were in meetings sometimes with others. I want Ms. Stewart to always have the opportunity to be professional. I also want her to feel in control of the situation when she is heading a meeting. If she is the host of the meeting, she has to be able to control that environment. So that was my solution for her. So those issues have been addressed. And also the legal opinion was, it is nothing we can do about Ms. Laura except for have her step down off the financial, sit her down off financial committee, and then we would have to vote as a board. Outside of that, we cannot remove her from the board. We cannot take action against her. The only person that can remove Ms. Laura from the board would be the governor, and there is steps that you would have to take. So with that being said, I, as the president and as the board, we have taken all the steps that we can take legally to contain the situation. Is there any questions or comments? Ms. Green?
I just want to know from Ms. Dunphy, has it gotten better for you since the president put these things in place? Is it something that is working for you? It is? Oh, okay, that's good to know. Okay.
Okay, is there any other questions or comments?
I need for someone, you know, we had this conversation with Kendall Williams. What do we define as hostile? And because we're using these words out of turn when we're in a public arena like this, or disrespectful. And so some people can have the same interpretation of what is hostile and what is abusive. And we all three has experienced a very hostile and abusive situation, but yet and still we didn't respond for it because of the hand closed door. So what do we call hostile and abusive? And I think now we get into, you know, because we are public officials, we all come in with different personalities. You got your Eric Mays on your board, and then you got, you know, the quiet person. So if I raise my voice, I raise my voice. Does that mean I'm hostile? Now, there's a certain thing as badgering, and maybe we can use that word, just constantly badgering a person. If I give you an answer and the answer is not what you anticipate, what you want to hear, and you just keep badgering, then that's something different. Because if you keep badgering me, I'm just going to tell you shut up. But we can't say that. But I'm just saying we have to be careful when we're trying to destroy people's characters. And you know, three of us board members experienced that in the most hostile environment, but we managed to get past it. So we might have to look at what we call hostile. Did she threaten to hit her? Did she threaten to do something violent to her or something like that? So one of the things the attorney did say is perception. And so we dealing with is perception. And we can't destroy a person because your perception is that I don't have the answer. And we already pretty much know the answer. We know you're not going to give us the answer. So it creates that atmosphere. I am a counselor, and I have to be careful. I can raise my voice, but what is hostile? Did I call you out your name or something like that? So let's be mindful how we speak to some people. Let's be mindful of the order we have. If I ask Ms. Dupre something, she might not give me the answer I want. Ms. Dupre is not my employee. This board has one employee. She sits right here. So Ms. Dupre can't give you an answer. They gave us an employee. You go to her, and that'll solve a lot of problems. I can't get it from there, then I just take the next step. So the administration is not our employees.
And also, I did want to make this point clear as to the piece that Dr. Joyce just spoke on. I did read some literature. I did read some HR information. The reason I did feel confident in the decision I made is because their situation, in my opinion, had the ingredients to become physical or volatile. That puts us on the line as a district. So in stating that, and when I said, because she might blow, she might come to work with something, because she has situations in her life too. We don't know what she's going through personally. And then she encounters you and you're just doing your job as a board member, but she already feels antagonized and you say or do the wrong thing. You don't know, she might attack you. You never know what a person's breaking point is. And my position is to prevent that situation from even having the opportunity to take place. So with that being said, maybe you are in control of yourself because she's the one complaining. So she's the one who made the complaint feeling antagonized. So maybe you're not at the end of your rope, but she was. So to speak to Dr. Joyce, even though maybe what Ms. Laura was doing was totally within her rights as a board member, we still have to respect the fact that Ms. Don Prey has a job to do, and she has to feel free in that position to do her job.
I just want to be clear, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying the way that we're using words.
Yes.
I have nothing to do with this complaint.
Okay.
I'm just saying, how do we
Okay.
feel? How, I could have been having a terrible day when I was assaulted
Right.
and threatened and could have just went off hinge, but we was on Zoom, so I couldn't.
Right, and seeing their face to face.
Face to face. But just keep in mind that, and I understand what everybody's saying, and I do try to be mindful. It's just not us right here. People all over listening, hearing to it. And I don't like insulting people, but at the same time, nobody likes to be,
Right.
Back and forth either. So I just think we have to be mindful. How do we treat people? And I used to worry badgering. I don't like being badgering. If the person said no, they don't have it, move on. If it's not getting what you want, write it down and maybe put it in writing and get the answer somewhere else. And I think that'll eliminate a lot of this problem.
Ms. Green?
Agree with Ms. Joyce, but I want to also add that it's not just how we treat people, how we speak to people, how we talk to people, because I think that's the biggest issue. We can't deny we done seen it, and it ain't right.
It ain't right.
So I'm just saying, and that's my opinion.
And you're right.
And I think, we all have moments when we may not speak to each other the way we should, but speaking to me in a disrespectful way to set me off quicker than how you treat me.
And
That's just me.
We're human.
So I just want to, like you said, be mindful. And when we're speaking to each other, come from a place of respect. And if somebody doesn't know, some give an opportunity to get it and find it out, like we've been doing, I think. I think with that, with President put in play, I think it's, like she said, it's working.
And
So
it just doesn't work here.
hold on, if it's ever not working, just make sure you let us know, right? Okay, that's it for me.
Ms. McIntyre?
Yeah, I mean, so I would like to agree with, the comments that everybody's said and, I am listening and, it's not something that I'm taking lightly, but I would like to say that this actually isn't how the law works though. To accuse somebody of a hostile work environment, there are actually labor laws with very specific definitions about what hostile means. And in this case, it wasn't used accurately. So I would like to categorically reject that I was behaving in any hostile way, manner, or form. It has to be towards a legally protected category that I'm discriminating against. And I wasn't being hostile according to the labor laws and definitions.
Well,
so I'm not done, please.
Oh, go ahead.
So also there's the kind of an insinuation that Ms. Domprey felt physically threatened, and that's just kind of ridiculous. Because
Well, wait a minute, hold on, because this is a good discussion. You
Wait.
can't speak on how she felt.
I'm not done, please. Please let
Go
me
ahead.
speak.
I'm letting you speak.
Right, but it's not about how she feels, but to make that insinuation is, this is character assassination. I am not a physical threat. And I mean, I think it just speaks for itself. So I would just like to state it out there. And I don't think anyone's ever been physically threatened by me. So now, according to what's hostile, this behavior is hostile because I am in a categorically protected category, and I have stated so several times. I am neurologically atypical, which is protected under the ADA, and I have a physical disability. And in the terms of the complaint that was made against me, some of the things that were listed was how I moved back and forth, about how I looked, a particular way. And those are things that I exhibit as a result of my disabilities. And so I want it just stated publicly for the record that I did not commit anything hostile towards Ms. Dumpre because I did not, you can't just look at somebody's attitude or their manner of speaking because I did not intend to ever be disrespectful, threatening, or hostile. If it's perceived that way, I can understand that that would be something that we need to move forward culturally. And I'm listening, and I have tried to change behavior and to accommodate what I feel are her levels of discomfort. And so I have tried to, make changes and accommodations. But to say that I am hostile according to the letter of the law, that is categorically false. And I have not threatened her, and she is not threatened, period. So,
Well,
I'm done.
the complaint, the portion that I addressed was not towards her comments about your movement and all that, because I have enough sense enough to know that that is something that she can't control, and you can't charge somebody with their on a computer at their home. The part that I was addressing is the fact that she says she felt like her work environment was becoming a hostile environment for her. So with that being said, even though it might not meet the level of law, the reference as it refers in the law, I saw that in the law and in a court of law, if she comes to this district and says she feels like she's being put in a hostile situation and it's a hostile environment, then whether it's true or not, we have to address that because that is how she is feeling. And for even though that situation might not be taking place, her feelings can be very real. And it's not just about your actions, it's about the situation we put her in. It can cause her to react. Like I said, she might feel like you just doing what you do, and she might feel like this is that hostile situation that she's been dealing with day after day after day. And she might just decide to choke the living daylights out of you. But the point is, she came to me and expressed to me that she was at the end of her rope with this situation. I have to address that. She cannot tell me that she feels threatened and it's a hostile situation and she doesn't feel like she's at liberty to do her job to the best of her ability, and we not even make an attempt to alleviate that situation for her. So that this is not to pin anything on you or put anything or you were to character assassinate you. This is to protect an employee of this district, and legally we're obligated to do that. So that is what this is about. Is there any further questions or comments?
Done with this?
I'm just going to close out if there ain't more questions or comments. Okay, I do believe that was it. So, Ms. George, you did finish, right? Because my thing then blew around. Okay, so yeah, at this point, before we adjourn, I would like to ask,
We did have, we received another complaint that need to come before the board. How are we going to address that one?
it's going to be on the next meeting.
Oh, okay.
We going to roll it over. We can have a special meeting or something. We finna go home tonight.
Yeah, I'm not going to do it tonight, but I just want to make sure, since we're talking about complaints and
So, and in alignment with that, if we're not, if we address it the next meeting, that's fine. But sort of a corollary to that is something that we passed, a resolution we passed in the last meeting where Ms. Elston was to get an assistant. And so we passed a resolution.
So she's in charge of giving us the green light when she's ready to handle. So she has full authority to deal with that. She just hasn't had the opportunity to get around to doing it.
I just really feel the urgency to address the complaint in conjunction with that. I don't see how anyone could possibly, okay.
it's time to go home.
Right.
She's going to do it the next meeting because, we're all in a hostile environment.
and it's time to go home. That complaint against you is old as black pepper, and we just not getting to it. Now, I haven't addressed Mo's because they've handled their situation where they can, to my understanding, from what Mo said, this is what Mo said. At this point, they're able to hang on and we're going to address it expediently. We're not putting it off. It will be addressed. We're going to take care of it. Not tonight.
So we asked Ms. Dumpre if she was satisfied and she could move forward. Is that true of Ms. Elston as well? Are you? Okay. Well, I just want to make sure that
Well,
she's
you
able
can't make
to.
sure on everything. She done just told, then I'm getting upset. Tired.
Okay.
I just wanted to protect her.
Before we adjourn, I would like to ask, is there anyone in the public that would like to address the board to please come forward to the podium and state your name and address before you begin speaking? Is there anyone that wishes to speak or address the board? Yes, sir.
I need to say this, man. This is fun. You can't really, elected official, I mean, I've been waiting for 4 years since December the 19th. I mean, it's 2019 over at the city. I paid my money and I'm going after him. It's been a lot of disrespect on both sides. I done sat here and watched Ms. Stewart disrespect. I done sat here and watched some of the board member disrespect, but we consider it disrespect because of our tone and because we're not getting the information that we want. Stewart lied to me a couple of times. I done said it. I mean, they would find that being hostile. Man, y'all are elected officials. If Ms. Dumpre, she's in a public position, she's not giving up the information, I'm gonna badger her, I'm gonna go after her, I'm gonna do all that. Because she's in a public position. She's over millions of dollars. And I'm here to represent the people and I want my information. And if she's not giving the information, then I'm gonna go after her. Period. So let me ask y'all to make a motion on this right here. Youth Quest, Teen Quest. Make a motion, bring them in front of y'all. Find out what it is that they do. I wouldn't wanna, can a person ask you or tell you that he can't come here until he bring his boss with him? Man, get out of here. And then I want the questions up front so I can figure out how to lie for the questions that you ask me. I'm not giving you nothing because you should know everything, every question that I have for you up front. I'm not giving you anything because here's the problem with that, because you might ask a question and Ms. Green or Ms. Laura might come up with some questions that off your question. So I don't have any questions for you, my man. Just bring your butt up here if you're getting paid by me and answer my questions, period, point blank. Ms. Stewart, and before this even came up, I was going to ask this question because I was talking to somebody today and they are fearful of you. These principals and teachers are fearful. I'm serious. That would be considered harassment. That would be considered hostile. No lie. They are fearful. So, I mean, you're doing your job. You're doing your job. So I guess it's the way that people interpret, what's harassment, what's hostile work environment. Because, I mean, you might not consider you being hostile, but that other person might, but it's not because you're just doing your job, I guess. So I don't think people should get written up for, certain things. I mean, but if you're being vindictive, something like that, then you should. Hey, y'all have a good night. I really appreciate coming to the board meetings and having fun with y'all. Thank you so much.
Can we make that motion for your question, and Crown be, brought to board to discuss?
I didn't hear you.
Can we make that motion concerning youth plus and Crim? Are you ready to go?
If you want to make a motion,
I made a motion for that,
you got to say what the motion is.
to bring Crim and youth plus before the board so we can have further discussion what their role are in the schools.
Okay, yeah, she seconded that. It's been moved and properly seconded. Now, let me say this. Just because they come in here and do a PowerPoint and say this is what they do, that don't mean that's what they do.
That's not what we asked.
No, I'm just saying, because
Well,
it's
we know all
discussion
of
time.
that. We just asking, could that, because we
And-
got, and the reason I said that. we
Well,
got
it's
the
been
power-
moved and properly
Okay.
seconded, so. But that was part of the discussion, that even if they come before us, I just want us to understand, they can tell us anything. If we don't check up on them, then.
Yes, what we do, just like the same way, we ask some financial question, the guy is supposed to help us. And you know what happened there, he goes into a meeting and he's supposed to been working for the board. And that's the problem here. If we ask something, you can put the question down, they get a game on you. The person that's supposed to represent this board, and you know who we're talking about, disappears. And they goes off somewhere else. So that's why I'm not comfortable with putting my questions out here, because we working with a dishonest system, if we might use that word nicely. So I understand what you're saying, but it's something that we need to get through, because we got to get to the point, when are we going to start looking at building at least 2 new elementary schools? So if we start with that, we made the motion, you second it, and we do the next thing and we can leave, if it's okay.
Those in favor signify by saying aye. Those,
Aye.
okay, the ayes have it. The motion passes. Time is 10:30. Meeting is adjourned.